Tonight, I am announcing Canada will be responding to the U.S. trade action with 25% tariffs against $155 billion worth of American goods. This will include immediate tariffs on $30 billion worth of goods as of Tuesday, followed by further tariffs on $125 billion worth of American products in 21 days' time to allow Canadian companies and supply chains to seek to find alternatives. And now is also the time to choose Canada. There are many ways for you to do your part. It might mean checking the labels at the supermarket and picking Canadian-made products. It might mean opting for Canadian rye over Kentucky bourbon, or foregoing Florida orange juice altogether. It might mean changing your summer vacation plans to stay here in Canada.
Well, you're asking me a question, because I'm sure you didn't hear. Am I going to impose tariffs on the European Union? Do you want the truthful answer, or shall I give you a political answer? Absolutely.
One thing he's never changed his mind over is tariffs. You can go back and look in the CNN archives from the 90s, and Donald Trump's talking about tariffs in the way he talks about them now. We've had tariffs as long as we've had a country. They've always been a tool to exact foreign policy goals. Right now, to solve our immigration problem, we have to put pressure on Mexico. We have to get Mexico's attention. They have to help us deal with the flood of people coming from Central America. We can't do it without them. The tariff is a great tool to do that.
Well, look, I looked at the numbers this morning, Maria. The crossings on the border are down 93%. 93%.
Wow.
That's a bigger decrease than under the first Trump administration. So, look, I said it. President Trump is a game changer. No one has had the success he's had on securing the border. He clearly understands we can't have strong national security if we don't have border security. We need to know who's coming in, what's coming in, where's coming in, why it's coming in, and we have achieved a success on the border already.
We know what the Constitution says, and the Trump administration, though, is trying to defy it. That's sort of the point of how muddled this all is they want to confuse, and they want to say, try to stop us. We think the courts will back us up.
Look no further than the fact that Elon Musk went on X overnight, did a Spaces, held court online, and with him was Senator Joni Ernst, who was effectively backing him up when he said that he wanted to get rid of USAID. She made the point that she said we want to help starving children effectively in other countries, but that they're afraid the money is not going where it's supposed to be going. So we've seen it on everything from the gutting of these kinds of agencies, the attempts to try to eliminate these agencies, which, by the way, you need Congress to actually do. You can't just stroke of a pen, wipe an agency off a map.
We've got a president that wants to put America first and protect people. We have 100,000 people a year, Kristen, dying from fentanyl. He ran on this. This is not a surprise. He talked about getting operational control of our border. He talked about tariffs and improving our standing in the world. He's doing all those things. And look no further. The best evidence of this last week, Colombia came to the table after that threat and agreed to take criminals back into their country and illegal immigrants. So the fact of the matter is it works. It worked the first time when he was in office. We didn't see inflation. We saw wage growth, and we saw more onshoring of jobs back here in the United States.
A lot of my Canadian sources say that, not only do they say that it's a advantageous time for the United States, but point out that Canada really can't withstand in the long term a sustained tariff regime. So I imagine what we get here is possibly some mitigation of the tariffs if Canada and Mexico come up with more specific ways in which they can help the United States achieve its goals on border and fentanyl.
Americans have to understand how hurt and frankly how furious Canadians are. Our sovereignty is being challenged, and so regular Canadians across the country are coming up with ways to stand for Canada, to fight for Canada, to defend Canada, but mostly to say to our American neighbors, guys, just cut it out. Just stop it. This is a terrible idea.
Why is Navage trusted by millions?
Before Navage, I was not living my best life because I could not breathe. Constant nasal congestion, constant blowing of the nose. The huge difference is the fact that Navage pulls it out. It's very gentle in the sense of when that suction happens, it's literally grabbing that water and that mucus and it's bringing it out into this tank. It's worth every penny that you pay for it. This product changed my life.
Available at major retailers or online at Navage.com.
Did you know that thousands of authors across the country have written books and published them with Page Publishing? If you've written a book, Page can help you through the process. We cut through the confusion of the publishing world to make it easy for you. If we decide to publish your book, your work ends and ours begins. From copy editing and proofing to typesetting and book cover art, we get you printed, distributed, and sold on Amazon, Apple iTunes, and bookstores. We'll even promote your book.
Call 1-800-319-0257. That's 1-800-319-0257.
You asked, and we heard you, America.
Real America's Voice is coming to iHeartMedia.
Yes, Real America's Voice is now breaking through the white noise of the mainstream media.
Just download the iHeart app, and you'll have all of us right at your fingertips.
Scan the QR code and start streaming RAV anywhere you want.
Every day, there's a battle for your mind raging. Information coming from every angle with the will to deceive. Fear not. You found the place for truth. The voice of a generation that still has the will to believe in the greatest country in the history of the world. This is the Charlie Kirk Show. Buckle up. Here we go.
Okay, everybody. Happy Monday. Honored to be with you. This is a very rapid developing news day, and we are going to break all of the news down from this last weekend. Starting on Friday, President Donald Trump brilliantly put forward not a threat, but a tariff promise. Now, President Donald Trump did this in a very thoughtful way. He's been talking about for quite some time, both on the campaign trail and, of course, throughout his 2-week presidency, that he was going to use tariffs against countries that have been taking advantage of the United States and also to get them to help the United States. President Donald Trump on Friday afternoon evening said, tariffs will be applied on Saturday morning. And they were. This last weekend, we saw a 25% tariff applied on all Canadian imports, 10% on energy, 25% tariff on all Mexican imports, and a 10% tariff on all Chinese imports. Now, mind you, this is the brilliance of President Donald Trump. President Trump wanted to be able to have a window of negotiation. He knew that markets were going to get a little jittery. He knew that markets might have a sell-off. So he did this intentionally on Friday to allow a weekend of some negotiation and dialogue when markets are closed, so that the Dow does not go down a couple thousand points, so that he has an ability over a Saturday and a Sunday to accept some calls in between golf rounds at Trump National in Palm Beach and to negotiate. Now, the tariff power is a very unique power given to the President of the United States. Unlike most economic measures and treaties, it does not require Congress. The President of the United States has unilateral authority to be able to apply tariffs on imported goods in the United States. So what is a tariff? A tariff is a duty. A tariff could be called a tax, but that is a very shallow way of interpreting it. Basically, if I am going to import a car into the United States, and that car is $10,000. Well, a 25% tariff would then make that car $12,500, and the tariff gets applied on the imported good. This power is derived from several pieces of legislation. Of course, the Tariff Act of 1930, and then Section 301 of the Trade Act of 1974, and Section 232 of the Trade Expansion Act of 1962. This gives the president the power to impose tariffs if deemed necessary for national security. For example, if the United States believes that the importation of certain products threatens national security, the president can apply immediate tariffs. Also, under the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, the president can also declare a national emergency and use tariffs and sanctions as he sees fit. The president ran on an America First industrial policy, rebuilding the heartland of this country, but most critically and importantly, stopping the flow of drugs, illegals, guns, and fentanyl into our communities. We've seen the wreckage, the damage that has happened because of the porous southern and northern border. Last week, we had Josh Parker on the program, who is hoping to eventually maybe run for Elise Stefanik's seat in New York 21, as he was covering the northern border, the terrorists that are coming across the border. And Canada with Trudeau and Steinbaum in Mexico have not cared a scintilla about closing their border or mobilizing the military to help stop it. Tariffs are a long-term play. This is not about a week of stock market swerves. This is about three things. First, we are serious about using tariffs to force Mexico and Canada to take our border seriously. They've been happy to do nothing and let the entire world pour into our country, illegally, for criminal or for welfare reasons. We want them to be serious about helping fix this. And the way to do that is to remind them that we can blow up their economies. Mexico does not exist with a 25% tariff. They are a fake country that exists at the will of the American people and at the pleasure of America. If there is a 25% tariff, they collapse. And I have a lot of respect for the Mexican people, for the Mexican culture. And when I say that they are fake, it's in the sense of if there is a tariff applied to them, they are brittle and fragile. They are wholly dependent on trade with the United States of America. Wholly. They do not exist with a 25% tariff, period. The way to do this is to remind them that we don't want to destroy your economies, but we're not going to put up with an invasion. And what we have learned over the last couple of years is that the way to stop such invasion and flow of drugs is you must have the intermediary countries such as Mexico or Canada work in collaboration with the United States of America. The second reason for tariffs is to force other countries to stop taking advantage of us in other ways. We can say stop spying on us, stop stealing our patents, stop flooding our market with drugs. And I must also mention, not getting as much attention, there is a 10% import tariff on all goods from China, and we'll get to that in a minute. And finally, tariffs are necessary to revive our own economic production. We have become too reliant, way too reliant, on other nations for things such as vitamin C, making critical pharmaceutical manufacturing. President Donald Trump, using these tariffs, has brought them to the table. In the breaking news in the last hour, the 25% tariff on all goods coming from Mexico has been suspended for 1 month. In addition, the Mexican government is putting 10,000 of their own troops on the southern border to repel such invasion into the United States of America. President Donald Trump wants that to be zero. President Donald Trump wants to get to the magic number zero. Zero illegals coming into the United States. And yes, we have mobilized our military. Yes, we are no longer doing catch and release. But still, there's too many people coming across the border. A couple hundred a day. Now, mind you, it's down from like 3,000 a day when Joe Biden was president. But Donald Trump is aiming for Project Zero. And understand, when you view all these tariffs, it's about Project Zero. No more tariffs. No more drugs. No more fentanyl. No more illegals. And you can only do that if you have a cooperative neighbor. We are told for quite some time, oh, Mexico and Canada, they're wonderful allies. Sort of. But they've taken advantage of us for so long. For so long. 75% of all known terrorist watch list suspects cross through Canada, not through Mexico. Remittances from the United States make up roughly 5% of Mexico's GDP. This is the largest source of foreign income for Mexico, surpassing tourism, foreign direct investment, and manufacturing exports. This is President Trump addressing these tariffs. Play cut 10.
Planning to increase the tariffs against Canada?
Well, it could happen. If they do anything, we will. Canada's been very abusive of the United States for many years. They don't allow our banks. Did you know that? Canada does not allow banks to go in. If you think about it, that's pretty amazing. If we have a U.S. bank, they don't allow them to go in. Canada's been very tough on oil, on energy. They don't allow our farm products in, essentially. They don't allow a lot of things in, and we allow everything to come in. It's been a one-way street. We subsidize Canada by the tune of about $200 billion a year, And for what? What do we get out of it? We don't get anything out of it. I love the people of Canada. I disagree with the leadership of Canada. And something's going to happen there.
Of our entire economy, only 2.5% of our GDP is exports to Canada and Mexico. 1/3 of the Canadian economy, 1/3 of the Canadian economy is exports from Canada to America. 17% of Mexico is exports from Mexico to America. So basically, they've deindustrialized our country to make their country wealthy while doing nothing to stop the flow of such toxins into the interior of the United States. President Trump is using the tariff power given to him by Congress to defend you, your children, your neighborhoods. And then we're going to talk in the next segment, but how do you avoid a tariff? And this is the long-term play. Forget the short-term stock market ebbs and flows. No. There is a long-term play here of a clear signal, and you're going to see this grow like a beautiful harvest in the coming months and years, and I'll explain in a second. Z-Factor, if you guys want to get to sleep, we know how challenging it can be to get the quality sleep we need. Whether it's falling asleep or staying asleep, so many people are not getting the Z's they need. Z-Factor from Relief Factor has the formula to help change that. Z-Factor goes beyond melatonin and uses a combination of 4 natural ingredients. It can help relax your mind so you can fall asleep quicker and then help you sleep soundly through the night. If you're looking for the right formula for better Z's, give Z-Factor a try right now. You'll save 46% on the first order, only $19.95 on a 30-day supply. Call 1-800-4RELIEF or visit ReliefFactor.com. That is ReliefFactor.com. How do you avoid a tariff? It's a very simple answer. We'll be right back.
America has the greatest economy in the world, but I think most of us would agree we have a problem. The cost of almost everything is up. Home prices, rent, food, insurance. Every sector has taken a hit, including automotive. More Americans are keeping their cars for longer, including me. And one way that we can make life more affordable is CarShield, America's #1 auto protection company.
CarShield's rated A+ with the Better Business Bureau and named America's most trusted auto protection company.
With CarShield, drivers could save thousands on covered parts and systems like your engine, transmission, entertainment system, and more. It's the protection that I trust, just like these other happy customers.
With CarShield, saving the $2,700 has been a real blessing. I love CarShield. It is my lifeline.
Our life as nurses, we just step up and we help people, and it's really nice when somebody steps up and helped us. If our car breaks down, CarShield administrators have our back.
If your car's out of warranty, it's not a matter of if it'll break down, but when. Call CarShield before it's too late and protect yourself from expensive car repairs.
CarShield is ready to help year-round nationwide with thousands of vetted shops to choose from, or their concierge service to help you find a mechanic near you. Unlike other companies, they don't just send you to the cheapest place in town. I trust CarShield, and so should you.
I have filed a total of over 5 claims, and my price from when I signed up never went up. And with the age of my car, that is security.
CarShield is a U.S. company supporting hardworking Americans save over $1 billion in expensive auto repair costs. More of us are keeping our cars for longer, so give CarShield a call now before a breakdown happens. Call now.
Call CarShield now before a breakdown and see how they're saving drivers money on covered auto repairs. Call 800-635-5126. 800-635-5126.
Hello, I'm Rebecca Weber, CEO of AMAC, the Association of Mature American Citizens. AMAC is at a crossroads, and the first 100 days of President Trump's administration will be critical in shaping our nation's future. That's why AMAC is proud to introduce the first 100 Days Tracker. Our tracker will monitor the administration and Congress as they work to deliver on the Make America Great Again agenda, ensuring progress on critical issues like sealing our borders, protecting your freedoms, and strengthening our economy. As an AMAC member, you'll receive daily updates and opportunities to take action. Together, we will hold our leaders accountable and celebrate the victories that make our nation stronger. Join the AMAC family today and be part of a movement driving real change. I look forward to welcoming you to AMAC.
Welcome back to this Real America's Voice news break. I'm Terrence Bates. President Trump is immediately pausing the 25% tariff on Mexico that was set to take effect tomorrow. He's doing so for 1 month. In a True Social post, he writes that he spoke with Mexico's president, who agreed to send 10,000 Mexican troops to the U.S.-Mexico border specifically to stop the flow of fentanyl and illegal migrants into the United States. The 47th president says during the upcoming month-long cooling-off period, there will be high-level negotiations involving Mexican officials, as well as the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, and the Treasury Secretary and Secretary of Commerce. The president will reportedly have a conversation with Canadian officials later today. So far, Canada is promising to respond to potential U.S. tariffs with taxes on U.S. goods as well. That could change throughout the day, though. Taking to True Social after announcing the tariffs initially, the president writing, "This will be the golden age of America. Will there be some pain? Yes, maybe, and maybe not. But we will make America great again, and it will all be worth the price that must be paid. We are a country that is now being run with common sense, and the results will be spectacular," he writes. That's a quick check of your headlines.
Welcome back, everybody. Email us, as always, freedom@charliekirk.com. So what is the signal that this sends? By the way, President Trump has now said potentially 10% tariff on all goods from the European Union. Understand that when you are the incumbent economic superpower, people want to do business in your country. We are not Portugal. We're not India. Portugal famously has a lot of tariffs to protect their incumbent industry. And it doesn't work great for them. It works good for some of it. But they want to protect port. They want to protect other fine delicacies of the Portuguese culture. It's fine. Good for them. They have every right to be able to do that. We've been told and propagandized by the corporate class that tariffs make you poorer. Tariffs are terrible. So how do you avoid a tariff? And they can never answer this question. The corporate class can never come under examination when it comes to tariffs. In fact, I remember once I was on a cruise ship, a Media Research Center cruise ship with Brent Bozell, great guy, and they had some corporate class lunatic who was giving a lecture on tariffs, about how terrible tariffs are. And he acted as if he was the super smart professor. And I asked him 15 questions, and he couldn't answer a single one of them. I said, why is it that during America's greatest prosperity, we funded the entire government on tariffs? I asked him, how does one avoid a tariff? He said, well, he did get this question right. Well, you avoid a tariff by making the country making the good in the native country. Exactly. So what President Trump is doing is he's signaling, hey, you want to avoid all these tariffs? Build your factory in Lansing, Michigan. You want to avoid this tariff? Build your factory in Mesa, Arizona. You want to avoid the tariff? Build the factory in Waukesha, Wisconsin. It is a forcing function to redomicile factories that otherwise would be in Wuhan, Guadalajara, or Winnipeg. It is a forcing function to say that the labor of the world will no longer be used in this massive capital arbitrage that disenfranchises American workers. And has the internationalist, corporatist, free trade experiment worked? Of course not. Just drive through Ohio, drive through rural Pennsylvania. The first rule of economics is this: human beings respond to incentives. You want America to make more things? Change the incentives. So let's pretend you're a big company. And by the way, the direction right now, there's going to be a manufacturing renaissance in this country like you've never seen, because advanced 3D manufacturing is where all the smart money is going right now. It's going to require high-tech jobs, engineers, incorporated artificial intelligence, advanced robotics. So that's where all of the smart capital is going right now, is that we are going to have a hardware breakthrough, the likes of which no one saw coming. So let's pretend you're a big company and you're thinking of where to make your factory. You don't want to have a 25% duty put on your products. So you say, hey, let's go build it in Tampa. Exactly. And there's no tariff. You build your product here, there is no tariff. One of the most famous tariffs that we talk about on this program is that there is a 25% import tariff to this day that Lyndon Baines Johnson put on the books on pickup trucks. Do not every pickup truck you see on the highway has a 25% tariff. So how does Toyota avoid the pickup truck tariff? They don't need to re-headquarter the Japanese company. That's never, ever been the ask. We don't want Porsche to be headquartered in New Canaan, Connecticut. No, you just make the actual product here. And that is what Toyota does for their pickup truck. That is what Nissan does for their pickup truck. I know people that have Hondas that are made in America. And that's exactly what we want. Employ American labor, hire American workers. And the end result is we can still export pickup trucks to the rest of the world. You look at what we've done with pickup trucks. Again, the corporate class, the Koch brothers, they've propagandized us because all they cared about was one thing: the lowest possible price for a good imported into the country. So we have piles of plastic that are littering our garages. We have garage sales of stuff that we have no attachment to, and we have entire communities look as if it's been Dresden. This was China's strategy. They spent years using tariffs and effort to build up their manufacturing capacity. Now they are the world's best in many fields. And the world has no choice but to buy their stuff because it's the best. But there is a new renaissance coming where we can beat China. It's advanced manufacturing. Advanced manufacturing, 3D manufacturing, and highly sophisticated robotics, that is coming around the corner. And we want America to be the center of the planet for that golden era. And you do that by a forcing function. You want to avoid the tariff? Build your good in East Palestine, Ohio. We'll be right back.
Whether you're a professional driver or just a fan, vehicle breakdowns are costly.
It started tugging.
It started making some really weird noises.
I kept hearing ding, ding, ding.
The last thing I remember is just the engine cut out.
If your check engine light comes on tomorrow, the repair could easily cost thousands.
Is that transmission?
It's an exhaust leak.
Broken axle.
Catastrophic failure.
But with Endurance, you could never pay out of pocket for a costly repair again.
They covered a $14,000 engine replacement.
I had a seat sensor that went out, $1,400. Endurance paid it.
We got a brand new transmission, and we never seen the repair bill.
Use any certified mechanic you want. Just bring your car in, and Endurance will pay them direct. All major parts are covered. And if you need a rental car, that's covered too.
When I needed Endurance the most, they were there for me.
Endurance came right back. No problem. Don't worry about it. We'll work it out with the dealership. We'll get you covered.
What I like about Endurance, they don't play games. There's no middleman. They're a solid company. You never know when a breakdown can strike, and you need coverage you can count on.
Without Endurance, a broken AC unit can cost over $800. Transmission over $3,000, and engine over $4,000.
If I didn't have Endurance, I would have paid over $7,000 out of pocket to repair my vehicle. Something is going to break down. Make Endurance pay for it.
With Endurance, your car repair costs go way down, while your car's life expectancy goes way up, allowing you to drive more and pay less.
Imagine never fearing a check engine light or a car that won't start, or a simple trip to the auto shop for an oil change again.
The check engine light came on the vehicle. I thought, oh my gosh, what's this going to cost me? And he said, ma'am, you're covered. I mean, what can you say? Hallelujah.
With Endurance, you've got coverage that can keep thousands in your pocket.
One claim alone saved me more than $4,000.
I've had 5 claims, and that is $3,500 that I've kept in my pocket.
We've saved over $2,000, and that's just so far.
So, who's going to pay for your next car repair? You or Endurance?
Whether you put 10,000 or 100,000 miles a year on your car, if it's less than 20 years old, Endurance has you covered with unlimited miles. Plus, your plan covers 24/7 roadside assistance anywhere in the country. Call right now to get $300 off any plan, plus a full year of our top-tier elite benefits, a $2,000 value free. And all Endurance plans come with a 30-day money-back guarantee, but you have to act now.
Call 1-833-496-6017 for a free quote. That's 1-833-496-6017.
Welcome back to this Real America's Voice news break. I'm Terrence Bates. It is the 2-year anniversary of the toxic train derailment in East Palestine, Ohio. Vice President J.D. Vance is en route to that town as we speak. Our Ben Berkham is already on the ground there. Ben, good afternoon.
Hey, Terrence. Good to be with you, sir.
So let's talk about the problems some 2 years later. They still persist there in East Palestine. That's the issue.
Well, yeah, I mean, this is 2 years into it, and you can see, we're here in the firehouse. They've got new equipment here. You can see the amount of media that's here, probably 50 different networks from around the country. But, the people, I was talking to the people out on the ground, walking the streets, and most of them have still not received a dime from Norfolk Southern for what they've been through. And a lot of them are still having health effects. A lot of them still, I spoke to a guy today who says he's still getting bloody noses. You've got folks that their kids are still getting sick, and the big question is the uncertainty of the future. And they're all being told that the people that were part of this lawsuit, this class action lawsuit, are all being told, well, you either take the money now or you may not get anything in the future. But if you do take the money now, that's all you're going to get. You're basically signing your life away. So a lot still to be discussed. J.D. Vance, obviously, he's been a part of this from the beginning when he was a senator here in Ohio and stirring up the water when he was here. And now you've got Lee Zeldin, head of the EPA, will be joining him, and now new Senator Bernie Moreno. So the people here are really hopeful now that you've got a president that actually cares about them, that something might get done.
And of course, the expectation is that the federal government will get involved and either force the hand of Norfolk Southern or do something itself. 10 seconds.
Yeah, that's the hope. Norfolk Southern and the EPA, it sounds like, to the people's perspective, they've both been derelict in their duty.
All right. Ben Berkham reporting for us on the ground there in East Palestine. Again, Vice President J.D. Vance expected there at any moment. The moment he does arrive and take the microphone, we'll, of course, take you there so that you can hear his remarks live, as this is the second anniversary of the toxic train derailment there in that small community. Well, that's going to do it for your headlines. As always, we appreciate you being here with us. We'll get you back there to East Palestine in short order.
Campus to the car, the bullhorn to the microphone. It's the Charlie Kirk Show.
Okay, and in just a second, we have the great Peter Navarro joining us as we get that all set up. I want to remind you guys to subscribe to the Charlie Kirk Show podcast page and open up our podcast application and type in Charlie Kirk Show. Let me tell you guys about Job Creators Network. There's a lot of excitement in D.C. as we start the new year, but I wanted to talk to you about something just as exciting happening outside the D.C. Beltway, a revolution in the states. It's the education freedom movement. It's real, it's growing, and growing because some states, as they should, are putting parents in charge of the education of their kids. Everyone knows education is the power to change a kid's life. And anyone who's raised a kid knowing each has different needs, learning styles, and God-given talents. The fact is, parents know their own children best. They know what's best for their development and future. Education freedom legislation puts parents, not zip codes, and politicians in charge of these important family decisions. It's why I strongly support making universal education freedom a reality for every parent in every state. To find out where your state legislature stands and to make sure your voice is heard, go to educationfreedomusa.com now. That is educationfreedomusa.com now. educationfreedomusa.com now. Joining us now is a dear friend and fellow warrior for America, Peter Navarro. Peter, welcome to the program. Counselor for Trade and Manufacturing directly to the President of the United States. Peter, great to see you, my friend.
Brother Kirk, man. How you doing?
Doing great, Peter, and always fun to run into you as you are trying to make things happen. Peter, explain to the audience here what the president is doing with his tariff strategy and implementation. Peter, the floor is yours.
In this case, we have a drug war against the American people on the campaign trail, Charlie. As you well know, the president promised the American people that people would stop dying from deadly Chinese fentanyl coming in through Mexico and Canada. It's important to understand how this works. Fentanyl is a synthetic opioid. A grain of it can kill you. It's one of the most potent drugs ever made. Communist China has been making the precursor chemicals for years now, going back to when I was with President Trump in his first term. We were fighting this battle. And what the Chinese do is they export the chemicals to Mexico, and then the Mexican drug cartels have their little factories and processing where they make straight fentanyl pills, but they also use the fentanyl to lace other drugs, anything from heroin and speed and so on. And next week, when the Super Bowl happens in New Orleans, it's eerie. The number of people who are going to be sitting in the Superdome, about 75,000, is roughly equal to the number of Americans who have been dying every year because of this problem. And Charlie, what's interesting as well for your demographic, I mean, your show, of course, you are the king of informing younger folk. The people who are dying in most numbers are in the 18 to 45 prime working age bracket. So I'm going long on this to explain just how difficult this situation is. And so once it gets to Mexico, the cartels are going up to Canada. There's also a bunch of it coming in from China directly through the mails. The stuff is so small, it comes in through packets. And the president said, this is stopping. And what he has done is use the International Economic Emergency Powers Act, Emergency Economic Powers Act, IEPA, that's what it's called, which provides the president broad authority in times of crisis, in this case, a public health crisis and a border security crisis, to use tools such as tariffs to solve the problem. So the tariffs were imposed on Saturday by the stroke of a pen with 3 countries. China gets 10% tariffs, Mexico and Canada 25% tariffs. Breaking news just this morning, the president and the Mexican president were able to successfully negotiate a 30-day pause in the tariffs. We're going to get 10,000 more troops at the border, Charlie, and a whole bunch of other stuff. The Mexican government has actually been very helpful and willing to negotiate. It's in sharp contrast to Canada. Canada has basically declared a trade war upon us when what we are dealing with is a drug war. Canada has a lame duck prime minister who seems to want to go out in a flourish, but who seemingly has no regard for either the welfare of Canadians or the welfare of the American people. And so this is where things stand at this point. The president has taken firm action to save lives. And I mean, it's a carnage. More people die every year, Charlie, from fentanyl than died in the Vietnam War. I mean, this is unimaginable. And the president is going to put a stop to it, sir.
Peter, explain how the White House views the implementation of tariffs to protect American industry and to have a forcing function of redomiciling industry against what would be the typical neoliberal Washington, D.C. corporate consensus. Explain the philosophical worldview difference that President Trump has.
The globalist view of the world, which is rooted in this thing called the Ricardian trade model, which every undergraduate is taught in our ivory tower schools, says that if you have free trade among countries and labor and capital are mobile, you'll have a bigger economic pie because everything's more efficient. And life will be better for everybody. But when you read the fine print of that globalist model, you see that it falls completely apart immediately because, first of all, some countries win, some countries lose. And second of all, there's no such thing as free trade. The United States is the uncle sucker of the world when it comes to trade. We have the lowest tariffs, lowest trade barriers in the world. We've got $1 trillion trade deficit every year as a result. And what President Trump's view of the world, nationalist, economic, populist view of the world, if I may, is that it's America first. We have to defend our factories and jobs and sovereignty against unfair trade. And the sovereignty comes in by the fact that when you run $1 trillion trade deficit a year, that's money that basically the foreigners then use to buy pieces of America. And that's an unsustainable equilibrium. So with respect to the different kinds of things the president's going to be doing, it's in different buckets. There's a commitment to a global tariff. This is to deal with the trade deficit issue. There's a review of steel and aluminum tariffs, which were successfully put on by President Trump in 2018, but which have been eroded by the Biden administration. And there's the strategic and national security type tariffs. So I remember, I think in some sense the boss was inspired by the first time we closed the border, Charlie. I was there in the Oval when the president asked whether we could impose tariffs on Mexico to force them to seal the border. And he looked at me, I said, yeah, sure. And he looked at Pat Cipollone, the White House legal counsel. Pat said, yes. He made that threat to Mexico, and within 24 hours after globalist heads exploded, sure enough, Mexico sent 20,000 troops to the border and signed the Remain in Mexico policy, and boom, done. So the current issue here is a drug war, not a trade war. We're trying to stop the flow of fentanyl. And by the way, Canada is a very bad actor in this. It's not just that they're allowing these Mexican drug cartels in the labs and that they've got the fentanyl coming in small packages across their border. There's been almost 100 terrorists on the watch list that we've apprehended here in America that came through that northern border. And it's like they should be bending over backward to help us stop this carnage. And that's where things are as we talk right now, Charlie.
In closing here, Peter, are we in a trade war?
We are not in a trade war. We are in a drug war. We are in a war with the Chinese chemical producers, the Mexican drug cartels, and the Canadian authorities who are allowing fentanyl and other drugs and contraband and terrorists into our country. And look, I mean, Charlie, it's like the border security issue, I think, was the single most important issue in this election, followed only by the trade issue. The president, promises made, promises and kept. No one knows better than Charlie Kirk that the president keeps his promise.
Amen.
And he's going to stop fentanyl from killing all of these Americans, and he's going to do it by forcing China, Mexico, and Canada to put an end to what they're doing with respect to that trade. And they all have a role. Each one of them has a different role in the process. But when you add it all up, the three of those countries have the capabilities to stop killing Americans, and that's what they're going to do, or we're going to do what we're doing.
Peter, I know the president is operating at a rapid pace. I only have 45 seconds here. Give us a little window into the tempo of what you're seeing in the White House right now.
Totally different from the first term. We were turtles. Now we're thoroughbred horses. We're at the top of the learning curve rather than at the bottom. We had a record number of executive orders signed on day one, and we're just going. For the trade thing, I urge everybody to read the presidential memorandum, the America First Trade Policy. That lays out the entire agenda for the next 100 days, and you'll see everything from investigations about possible global trade, export controls, currency manipulation, steel and aluminum tariffs, critical minerals, including the rare earths, essential medicines. It's all laid out in that presidential memorandum, Charlie. And all you have to do, if you're a good journalist, is read it, and you'll get great insight into the trajectory of the trade policy.
Peter,
love what you do, Charlie.
Thank you.
I want to I always say this when I come on, and I always mean it. You have done more than anyone to mobilize the youth of America on behalf of President Trump and the Republican Party. And, sir, I salute you.
Peter, you're a great friend. We have your back 100%. You know that. Keep on protecting America and our interests. God bless you, Peter. See you soon. Thank you.
God bless you, sir.
Relief Factor. If pain is affecting your life, I have the perfect New Year's resolution for you. Make 2025 the year of feeling good again, the year of moving better, sleeping better, and feeling more alive. Relief Factor is a daily supplement that fights pain naturally. Developed by doctors, it doesn't just mask pain temporarily, helps reduce or eliminate pain. Give their 3-week quick start a try. It's only $19.95 and less than $1 a day. Wherever you're hurting back, neck, joints, or muscles, go to relieffactor.com. That is relieffactor.com, or call 1-800 and the number 4RELIEF. That is relieffactor.com, relieffactor.com. JD Vance is in East Palestine, Ohio. We continue. Email me, freedom@charliekirk.com.
Israel needs you. We desperately need tens of thousands to respond.
A great storm from the north has come against Israel. You've got the scriptures calling each one of us not only to pray for the peace of Jerusalem, but it's incumbent upon each one of us to defend these precious people of God.
This massive grocery store should be crowded. People are lacking food.
Exactly.
The International Fellowship of Christians and Jews is preparing meals for precious elderly citizens who can't get out.
It broke out her window that was shattered. Because of the war, much of her roof is gone. The ceiling is gone. She's frightened from Hezbollah.
Hezbollah?
Yeah. How does she get food? The International Fellowship of Christians and Jews, we come in. Thank you. You provide groceries, vegetables, hot meals. It's you.
Your emergency gift will help provide food to Clara and thousands like her trying to survive in the evacuated areas of Israel. Your urgently needed gift of $45 will help rush the delivery of an emergency food box and nutritious meals for a week.
It's you that gives her hope and lets her feel the presence of God.
It must be that God is here with me now. Thank you, and I'll say a special prayer of thanks to God.
When there's war and violence and brokenness, you and I as Christians are chosen to minister, to love. The wars come and the wars go, but something that never changes is hunger. And you help bring the peace when she can know I have something to eat today.
Of America, and the future is bright. Here is Charlie Kirk.
Okay, everybody, welcome back. Email us, as always, freedom@charliekirk.com. We have a lot to still cover here. USAID, which is a racket. It is a fraudulent racket. Is just going to be shut down. Just put people on administrative leave. There is this coming constitutional collision point, and it's all around the Impoundment Act. It's coming like a freight train. Does the executive branch have to spend everything that Congress has appropriated? And if your answer is yes, then you don't believe in equal branches. You believe in Article 1 supremacy. You believe in legislative supremacy. The founders wanted equal branches that are constantly bickering with one another. They did not want to have a superseding legislative branch. And if we're honest with ourselves, we have a supremacist Article 1, and then we have this Article, fourth branch government that comes together, and this Article 2 is basically the executive branch has become this weak, feeble, basically performative branch, and President Trump is bringing it back to the vim and vigor that the founders envisioned. Subscribe to our podcast. We'll be right back. Okay, everybody. While we may have won this election, the fight to restore our great nation is only beginning. Now is the time to take a stand, and Patriot Mobile is leading the charge. As America's only Christian conservative wireless provider, Patriot Mobile offers a way to vote with your wallet without compromising on quality or convenience. Patriot Mobile isn't just about providing exceptional cell phone service. It's a call to action to defend our rights and freedoms. With Patriot Mobile, you'll get outstanding nationwide coverage because they operate on all three major networks. If you have a cell phone service today, you can get a cell phone service with Patriot Mobile with a coverage guarantee. But the difference is every dollar you spend supports the First and Second Amendment, the sanctity of life, our veterans and first responders, and switching is easy. Keep your number, keep your phone, or upgrade. Their 100% U.S.-based customer support team will help you find the perfect plan. Right now, go to patriotmobile.com/Charlie or call 972-PATRIOT. That is patriotmobile.com/Charlie. That is patriotmobile.com/Charlie or call 972-PATRIOT. So the DNC had their winter meeting. A lot happened at the DNC. And you have to wonder, for those of us that are conservatives and want to see the Republican Party go into a red reign, REIGN, have the Democrats decided to adjust, to adapt, to read the country, and to understand that they're a deeply unpopular, hated organization. The Democrat Party is hated. In fact, someone came up to me yesterday and said, Charlie, congratulations on the election. I voted for Trump. It wasn't because I liked Trump. It's because I wanted to repudiate the Democrat Party from all sectors of life. First time ever voting. It's like, wow. This is your average kind of taste, a little appetizer, a little chef's tasting, if you will. A little amuse-bouche of the DNC. Play cut 36.
Good afternoon, DNC! Hello, Democrats. Hey, I am speaking, and I would love your attention. There is a black woman at this podium, and I deserve your attention like the 11 people who went before me. Yes, I am speaking.
Good evening, Democrats. Look up here. 3 strong black women standing before you. 3 black women who, rather than just grabbing a chair, ran for chair.
Te quiero mucho, Papa. Gracias por todo. My name is Artie Blanco, Freddie Blanco's daughter. Vote for me for vice chair.
Look at this room, y'all. Truly take it in. This is the Democratic Party. We are our strongest when we stand together.
We are in a time in this country when our democracy and our rights are under attack. We're at a time where black and brown people, women, and other minorities are being blamed for everything that's wrong with this country.
So let's fight together for a stronger and more inclusive Democratic Party.
That's at the DNC meeting. This is a great clip here. The DNC chair gets confused by his own party's rules for their gender balance provisions. Has to hand over the mic to somebody else who can't explain it. This is just delicious. Play cut 39.
We're finding out ways to expedite this. Because of our gender balance provisions on this next ballot, you will be able to vote for 2 candidates of any gender on the next ballot. Okay? So on this next ballot, you will be able to vote for 2 candidates of any gender on the next ballot. If two candidates receive, I'm going to turn to Helen to clarify this last part.
You are in this next ballot where you have two votes. As the chair has said, you may vote for 2 males, 2 females, 2 of any gender, okay? Nope, you can't do that because we've got to balance. You could vote for 1 of any gender, okay? Or no, non-binary gender, excuse me.
All right, we're interrupting your regularly scheduled programming to take you to East Palestine, Ohio. Today is the 2-year anniversary of the toxic train derailment there. Vice President J.D. Vance is on the ground there. He is going to be speaking in short order. You can see here in this video, let's take it full, guys, as we wait for J.D. Vance to go inside. He is speaking outdoors there, talking to a number of the officials on the ground there in East Palestine in advance of going inside of a fire hall there where a podium is set up and where he'll be speaking. Our Ben Berkham is also on the ground there. We'll be checking in with him throughout the day. Of course, 2 years after the toxic train derailment there in East Palestine, there are still issues of toxicity in the soil and the groundwater and major concerns from a number of the people in this small community who are still reeling following that toxic train derailment. In fact, many people are deciding whether they're going to take a buyout from Norfolk Southern, which is the train company that was operating the train that derailed, causing those cars to go off track and to leak toxic chemicals into the environment there in East Palestine. And then let's not forget, East Palestine sits very close to the border of Pennsylvania. And so there are also some communities outside of East Palestine in those neighboring states that also suffered some of the toxicity and some of the some of the problems related to that train derailment. So all of those things we expect Vice President J.D. Vance to speak on today as he is back in his home state of Ohio. You may remember when that train derailment happened, then Senator Vance was the senator representing the people of Ohio. Now he is the vice president and returning back to Ohio, returning back to this community to help the community itself deal with the situation, the ongoing situation following that train derailment. Let's just listen in. Let's see if we can make out some of the conversations that he's having with some of these officials who are on ground there. Also, we're hearing that the director of the EPA, the new director of the Environmental Protection Agency, is also on the ground. So let's try to listen in. Maybe we can make out some of what's being talked about.
Stuff back on. Finish it up with the So yeah, we're getting there. What is much better than what is this creek here? So this is where the move it back.
Hey guys, I need everyone to start moving this way, please. Thank you. Thank you. Pass the car, please. Thank you.
Unfortunately, we're not able to really make out much of what's being said, but it sounds like he's getting somewhat of a briefing from the local officials there as they're kind of explaining the situation to him. Our Ben Berkham also on the ground there. Ben, you've had an opportunity to talk to a number of the people there on the ground. You've been there since early this morning. What are some of the stories that you're hearing? What are some of the concerns that you've been hearing from folks there in East Palestine?
Well, Terrence, it's really a mixed bag. You've got, I spoke to the mayor, actually got an interview with the mayor this morning, Trent Conaway, and, he's of the opinion that he's thankful that President Trump's coming, that J.D. Vance is coming. They're thankful that President Trump won the election, and that enough wasn't done under Joe Biden. But you've also got people in the community that, are basically saying that the mayor sold out the community, that the fire department sold out the community, that they got paid off, but none of the community has. So it's really created quite a rift in the community. A lot of people still waiting for money from Norfolk Southern. A lot of people not trusting at all what the EPA is saying, and hopeful that with Lee Zeldin in there, that they'll actually get some answers that they can trust. And so, I think the overarching sense is just a distrust of government, in particular of Joe Biden's administration and the EPA then, and what they were told in Norfolk Southern. They just feel like they got screwed, that they were abandoned by the previous administration. And there's a lot of hope that under President Trump, they will actually get some resolution to this. They'll hopefully get some funds. A lot of people want to leave, but they can't sell their houses. And so some people just want to get paid off and get out of here. Other people just want to move on and get some sort of compensation. So it really is a mixed bag.
You mentioned the new head of the EPA, Lee Zeldin. It's my understanding that he's expected to be on site today as well, along with Vice President Vance?
Yeah, as far as I know, he's here. They're right outside the building as far as we can tell. We're kind of cordoned off inside the firehouse. And so, in fact, they even have paper over the windows so we can't see out. But we believe he's right outside the building. He'll be coming in here momentarily. So it'll be Vice President Vance, Senator Bernie Moreno, and the new head of the EPA, Lee Zeldin, are anticipated to be here.
Yeah, we saw that group standing outside. They were talking to some of the officials. I couldn't make Lee Zeldin out, but then again, there was somewhat of a crowd of gaggle, so I'm sure he was probably in that crowd. In general, what is the sense that you're getting from people there in East Palestine? Obviously, there's disappointment about how the last couple of years have gone, but is there also anticipation about how the next 4 years will go under this new administration?
Definitely. I mean, there's no question. Everybody, regardless of which camp you fall into, in interviewing the mayor, he says it's split a third. There's a third of the community that believes everything's okay, or okay to the best of their ability, and they just want to move on. There's a third of the community that is just uncertain and doesn't know which way to go, and there's a third of the community that believes everyone, in his words, everyone's going to get cancer and die. And so you've got kind of, that whole swath of sentiments, but in everyone that I've spoken to, there is more of a sense that something will be done under President Trump than was done under Joe Biden. You have to remember, Joe Biden wasn't even here, didn't even come to the town for over a year. And nobody, in talking to the people on the ground, nobody trusted Pete Buttigieg as the transportation secretary. Nobody trusted what was coming out of, in particular, Norfolk Southern. And the odd thing, even people on the left really started to discount what was coming out of the EPA. And it seemed like everybody was kind of beating the same drum for Norfolk Southern. And so when it came down to this class action lawsuit, we're talking $600 million. Well, the top payout on that would be $70,000 per household. And that's you would actually have to back out. So some of the people thought, well, okay, I'll get $70,000. They didn't realize that they were going to have to pay back the housing allowances if they were put up in hotels for any extended period of time, if they had medical bills that were covered. All of that was getting subtracted out of that $70,000. So some people now are being told, well, they might get $20,000 for their entire household. And so, in talking to a lot of the folks, it just feels like a slap in the face. And on top of that, you're having to sign away your rights. So not only are you getting crumbs compared to what was sent, to other foreign countries, or to allowing illegals across our southern border, you're also signing away any future rights to sue or get any sort of compensation. And that's the big question. So there are a lot of people that now are saying, well, even if they were a part of the class action, well, can they back out of it? So there's movements by people that were a part of that to back out. There are other people that just want to get paid and move on. And it's just a mess. I mean, in the end, I guess the best way to describe it's just a total mess. And still some questions that haven't been answered. Why did the EPA ever allow the so-called controlled burn to happen? In talking to some of the experts, the chemical experts on the ground, they were saying that should have never happened. And it was allowed to. Initially, that was blamed on the fire chief, but ultimately that decision came down to the EPA, who made the call. Apparently, when they did the controlled burn, this again, quote unquote controlled burn, the catastrophically out of control controlled burn, they evacuated a certain area based on the wind conditions at the time, but before they started the burn, the wind conditions changed, and so they ended up evacuating the wrong area. And apparently, when they went back to do the soil studies and a lot of the air studies, they went back to the wrong area, the initial evacuation area, rather than where the actual plume of toxic chemicals went. And so, there's all of this plays into the people's mistrust of the government, of Norfolk Southern, of the EPA, and whether or not anyone will really know. And the sad thing is, now people will go to the hospital and they'll talk about their symptoms, and they're being told, well, that has nothing to do with the train derailment. That's just in your head, or there's other, you're sick from something else. And so they're basically able to just obfuscate culpability, and a lot of that becomes, the further we go away from the disaster, the easier that obfuscation becomes. So
absolutely.
Hopefully that doesn't muddy the water any more than it is. It's again, the moral of the story, it's just a huge mess.
Not to play on words here, but it sounds like a toxic situation, both emotionally as well as in terms of the environment there in that community. Let's talk a bit more about the EPA, because I think that's a really interesting angle. Now that there's new leadership at the EPA, is there an expectation there in East Palestine that there will be new studies done on the groundwater, on the environment, on the soil there? What is the expectation from the EPA under new leadership now, some 2 years following that derailment?
Yeah, there's hopes for that, but I don't know if it's you guys need my attention. Oh, the phones? Okay. Hey, I'm getting word I got to bring my phone down, guys. We're using it for the connection. Give me just a second. But yes, Terrence, give me just a second. I'll be right back with you.
Absolutely. All right. So Ben's got to do some housekeeping there as he's got to reset his phone there in East Palestine. In the meantime, you're looking at the stage and the podium where Vice President J.D. Vance is set to speak here at any moment. He is on the ground there outside of this firehouse. Earlier when we came on, you saw him speaking with a number of the officials there from East Palestine, very likely also from the state of Ohio. We're hearing that Lee Zeldin, the new EPA administrator, is joining Vice President Vance for this visit. Also, the new senator there, Bernie Moreno in Ohio, also on the ground there in East Palestine, Ohio, on this 2-year anniversary of the toxic train derailment there. In fact, on the bottom side of your screen, on the right side of your screen, you see some video from 2 years ago, that fiery train derailment, the smoke, the toxic plume, continuing to billow into the sky. It's hard not to forget. It's hard not to remember that night. We, of course, were on the air here on Real America's Voice, bringing you the very latest on this. As for days upon days upon days, there was fire and there was toxic chemicals that were emitted from that train derailment into the atmosphere there in East Palestine. And as you just heard Ben say, some 2 years later, there are still people who are complaining of the after effects of the toxicity in their community. They can't sell their homes. They're trying to determine whether the money that they would get from a settlement with Norfolk Southern, which of course is the train company that operated that train that derailed, would be enough for them to rebuild their homes, to rebuild their lives. And now many of them realizing, after all of the other costs that they would have to cover from what they had to pay out following that derailment, it very likely wouldn't be enough for them to do anything. So this is a really difficult situation for this entire community, and it's one that we imagine Vice President Vance is going to address once he takes the podium there in East Palestine here in moments. As I said, he was outside just moments ago talking with some folks, getting some pointers, finding out what the current situation is on the ground there, and we expect once he's finished getting that briefing, for lack of a better word, then he will make his way here inside this fire station to the podium and offer up remarks and hopefully offer some hope for the folks there in East Palestine, Ohio. So just to reset, for those of you who are just joining us, it is the 2-year anniversary of the toxic train derailment here in East Palestine. You're seeing video of the aftermath of that. The train cars not only derailed, but many of them burned. There were toxic chemicals inside many of those. There was a controlled burn that was put in place in order to burn off some of that toxicity. But we're hearing reports, and there have been reports really for the past 2 years, that that controlled burn went out of control and that the wind shifted, as you just heard Ben Berkham report. And so the people that were ultimately moved out of their homes, they were the wrong people, and other people were impacted. So that gets us to today, some 2 years later. The new Vice President of the United States, excuse me, Vice President J.D. Vance, returning to his home state of Ohio, where he served as senator when this train derailment happened. He is now coming back to hopefully offer some hope to the folks in this small community of East Palestine. He is also bringing with him the EPA director. This is the new EPA director out of New York. He also has Senator Bernie Moreno with him, who is the new senator there in Ohio. So all three of them will likely take the podium here in short order once they come inside and once they speak to this crowd. Do we still have Ben? Is Ben still available to give us some more insight here as we now look outside? Okay, we can't get to Ben. He had to change his phone, so I'll continue to kind of set the scene for you. But you saw the cameras turn, which means that we're expecting the group of lawmakers and officials to make their way indoor here at any moment and make their way to the podium there in East Palestine. This is a fairly small town, and there were concerns, of course, shortly after this train derailment about President Biden, who, of course, was the president at the time, not immediately coming to the community. President Trump, within weeks, maybe even days, made his way to East Palestine. You may remember the reports right here. In fact, we were live on the air here on Real America's Voice when President Trump showed up. He spoke with the mayor. He spoke with officials. He offered remarks there in East Palestine. But beyond that, he brought in tractor trailer loads of water for the folks there in East Palestine. Tractor trailer loads. They were loaded with water, and he handed those bottles of water out. And it was something small but significant to the people there in the community. Significant not just because they had fresh drinking water, but because it showed that someone cared. That was one of the sentiments that we continue to hear from the people there in East Palestine. He's showing that he cares. He showed up. Where's President Biden? President Biden didn't show up until about a year and a half after that, and even then he only stayed for a short time. All right, it looks like we're having a gaggle here. Is that President Trump there? It looked like, okay, I saw some video there. That was some old video. I apologize. I thought that may have been live, but that was an old video of President Trump. Again, Vice President Vance is on site. We do know that for sure, and we're expecting him to come in at any moment now and take to the podium there. But the point that I was making is that it took President Biden, who was the president at the time of this derailment, months, probably over a year and a half, to even come to this community to visit and to offer. And in the meantime, you had people who were getting sick. You had people who had homes that they couldn't still live in. You had people who were hoping or trying to sell their homes, but those homes weren't able to move off of the market. And it was a community that felt that they were the victims of politics. They felt, many people there in the community, because the community voted overwhelmingly Republican, they thought that it was a political stunt that President Biden at the time wouldn't come to their community simply because it was a heavy Republican community and because they voted heavy Republican. And so now there's a new administration. It's a Republican administration. And within 2 weeks of taking office, Vice President J.D. Vance is on site there in East Palestine, getting ready to speak to the people, letting them know that they are not forgotten, letting them know that this new administration is going to be on the ball and working for them. Now, yes, now Vice President, then Senator J.D. Vance served here in Ohio, and he was on the ground immediately after the initial train derailment. You probably saw the video. He was by a creek. He had a stick. He's rubbing the water, and you could see kind of this rainbowy film come out from underneath the water, which really showed some of the toxicity and some of the pollutants that were in the groundwater there in the soil. And now he is returning for a speech there in East Palestine. You can see the fire officials starting to walk up closer to the podium. That means that it's very likely that that Vice President Vance, that Vice President Vance is going to be making his way there to the podium here in short order as well. Lee Zeldin, the new administrator of the Environmental Protection Agency, also on site. We expect that he will be speaking, and Bernie Moreno, the new senator from Ohio, also on site. We expect to hear from all of them as they make their way into this firehouse and closer to the podium there in East Palestine. All right. Again, if you're just joining us, we are covering this 2-year anniversary of the train derailment there in East Palestine. It's hard to believe that it has been 2 years, but it in fact has been that long. And for many people there in this community, they spent the last 2 years suffering through the toxicity that's now taken over their community and other things. We've got some people who are stepping up closer to the podium. So the moment that happens, we will take you to that. As you can see, we're zooming in on the crest that is at the front of the podium there. President of the United States, it says, and the Vice President of the United States will be the one speaking. All right, guys, I'm seeing in one video that someone is at the podium here. Can we take that? Are we ready to take that, guys, or no? All right, there we go. Let's listen in. Let's see what's happening here. This may just be a mic check, but let's listen in. All right, so yeah, they're just doing a mic check here, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know who this gentleman is, but he's just doing a mic check, making sure that everything is in place so that when Vice President Vance does in fact take the microphone, there won't be any problems. And as I said, Lee Zeldin, who is the new EPA administrator, will be joining us. Also, the new senator there in Ohio, Bernie Moreno, will be joining him as well. So it will be interesting to see what they have to say on this 2-year anniversary of the train derailment there in East Palestine. We also have our very own Ben Burkham on the ground there. We'll be checking in with him throughout the day. He's been talking to a number of people there in East Palestine. And what he's described is that there are many people who are describing still being sick, still feeling the after effects of that derailment. Many of them believe that they have been poisoned, for lack of a better word, and so they're complaining about being sick, and they think a lot of that has to do with the contamination in their community. Yet, when they go to the doctor, when they try to get diagnosed, they're being told that their symptoms aren't necessarily related to the derailment, that it's from something else, and some of them are even being told that it's all in their head, that the symptoms they're reporting aren't necessarily real. And that's got to be disheartening for anyone, particularly when your community has been turned quite literally upside down following something like this. You may remember that Norfolk Southern is the train company that was operating that train, and it has come up with some payment figures for the people in this community. There have been a number of settlements offered to people, and some people have actually accepted those settlements. Others are waffling back and forth about whether they want to accept those settlements or whether they're going to hold out, excuse me, for a bigger payment. And so that's one of the things that I expect will be addressed today as well, particularly if some folks from the community are going to be allowed to take the podium along with the vice president as well as the EPA director and the senator there from Ohio. It's going to be very interesting to get their perspective and also to hear the perspective of lawmakers some 2 years after this derailment and now that a new administration is in place. So we are just now waiting. We are now just waiting for the vice president to take the microphone. It's my understanding that now we can talk to Ben as well. So, Ben, I would imagine some anticipation on the ground there as everyone in the audience, the media, and those folks there on the stage realize that the vice president is just minutes away from taking the podium and speaking to them.
Yeah. Just to give you an idea, I had to jump away from the camera there for a minute because in order to even get a signal out of here, there's so many live views and packs. We had to precariously put the phone up in the roll-up doors on the fire station here, and so they were about to roll up the doors and had to have me move my phone. So I'm back. I found a spot to put it, and it looks like we're holding a signal. But this is just shows you the community, the interest in this. You've got 50 plus media outlets out here. You've got hundreds of people outside lining the streets from the community. A little bit of frustration in talking to some of them that they weren't invited inside the room. It's, but it's very small fire station here. And so it is major anticipation. And again, it's 2 years coming. A lot of folks, even the folks that are taking the payouts, many of them are frustrated because they still haven't gotten paid. 2 years later, still haven't gotten paid. I was speaking to one lady this morning who said, even if you accept the payout, they'll send you a letter. Once you get that letter, you have to sign saying that you accept the letter. Once you accept the letter, you have to tell them if you want direct deposit. And then there's an actual payment schedule. And she said what was really frustrating to her is the payment schedule for people over 65 that are retired is actually less than the younger people, and they didn't realize that when this all happened. So basically, they anticipate you not living as long, so you're not going to get as much money. And so it's just, again, I just keep saying it's just a mess. It's just a total mess. Yeah. And everybody here on the ground is anticipating the new administration and hoping that some of this insanity can be resolved.
Ben, as I'm listening to you, it strikes me that some 2 years later, this derailment is taking not only a toll on people's health in that community, but it's also taking an economic impact individually and community-wide.
Oh, yeah, huge. I mean, this one of the hardest things. You've got, even just a few months after the derailment, you had people coming out, you had the EPA coming out saying it was safe, the water was safe to drink. They had these photo ops where they came and, drank water that was supposedly cleaned by the water treatment plant. But, I mean, if you're an investor, is this a community that you're looking to invest in? Probably not. If you're, a home buyer, is this a community you're looking to buy a home in? Probably not. And even some of the businesses here, I was with Edwin Wang, who owns Connect Fab, and we toured his shop 2 weeks ago, and he was right at ground zero where the derailment was. He had 50 employees. They were investing in the community. It was the American dream, and he still has not been able to reopen that facility. In fact, they have still not even done cleanup on the facility that was right there, his warehouse there, or his manufacturing facility. So, it's from an investment standpoint, it's a death sentence for a community, what happened. And so, and how do you compensate that? How do you compensate the community who had jobs and now don't, who had prospects and now don't, who had mortgages that had value and now they don't? Is $70,000 going to do that? Clearly not. So there's all of these other, and then you compound that with all of the uncertainty physically from a health standpoint going into 10 years from now, 5 years from now, a year from now. What does that mean? Bottom line is nobody knows, really.
Right. Not to be mean, but it really sounds from the outside looking in like this is a situation that's irredeemable. And these people are being forced to stay in a community that probably can't be brought back to what it was at one point.
Yeah, it's hard. It's really hard to say how you get past that. I think psychologically, I think for the people that live here, again, it's, if you're an outside investor, this is not a community you're looking to spend much money in. You might be looking to buy things dirt cheap and hopefully in 20 years be able to flip them. But as of right now, nobody is looking at East Palestine as a good investment, even though they're trying to put on a good face for that. And so it's it's devastated the community, and it's going to continue to devastate it for decades.
And Ben, I think it's also important to point out that, yes, East Palestine is the epicenter of this derailment, but the effects are being felt in neighboring communities as well, even across the border in Pennsylvania.
Right. I mean, that's one of the areas that there has been almost little to no testing done at all. It was where the actual massive mushroom cloud of toxic plume went. And you're talking millions of acres of farmland that could be affected with dioxins and vinyl chloride and benzene and all these things that have health impacts. And so if you're a farmer out, you could be 50 miles away from here, and your farm could have been impacted by this, and you still don't know it. The waterways, the Ohio River watershed. We were just a few months after the disaster. We were out and found 3 dead deer about 20 miles from the town itself. And who knows? Did those deer die from the water? Did they die from other natural causes? Who knows? But they were all dead right by the side of the Ohio River. Well, all of that Ohio River runs downstream, and people in Cincinnati, what impacts are they going to have? It's really almost impossible to know, and even and do any sort of tracking, and then at that point, any sort of compensation is just completely out the window. So how do you try to protect people? I think the biggest thing with this is trying to prevent it from ever happening again as well. In talking to a lot of people on the ground, it should have never happened. Norfolk Southern should have never run those trains at the speeds they were running them. They should have caught that the one set of bearings was on fire, or the one set of wheels was on fire, and they should never have been able to burn it and do that catastrophic uncontrolled controlled burn just to get the railroads going again. And so all of that, there's a lot that needs to be learned, lessons that need to be learned, and it feels to the local community like none of those have been learned. It was basically the entire focus and push was just to get the railroad back running again, which is important, obviously. It has a huge economic impact on our entire country, but that seemed to be the priority to everybody, not the community, not the health of the community, not the long-term implications, definitely not the economic health of the community. It was just simply keeping the railroad running.
What is this sentiment there in the community about Norfolk Southern and the fines that it was forced to pay by the federal government and the settlements that it's offering? I suspect, and I'd like you to clear this up, that people feel like Norfolk Southern got off pretty easy compared to what this community is having to deal with.
Yeah, no, they feel like, most of the people I talked to in the community feel like Norfolk Southern paid off the right people to make the issue go away. And have not been held accountable for their dereliction, for their negligence. And if anybody, has gotten away with it, it's been Norfolk Southern. That's definitely the general sentiment, that the community got screwed, but the railroad basically got a slap on the wrist and moved on. They've got insurance for this. You talk about $600 million. That sounds like a lot to us, but to a global conglomerate, it's they basically they plan for things like that. Not to the disaster, the level that it was, but it really, talking to some experts that have been involved with other lawsuits with similar health risks, they were anticipating it to be in the billions, not in the millions or hundreds of millions.
While the school meets first, since there's so many here, so make sure that we make way.
All right, we're listening to this gentleman trying to get, I think he's giving instructions to the media, right? Right. So is he saying that the press pool, the White House press pool, gets to ask the first questions, Ben, and then local reporters and others will talk? Is that pretty much the gist of it?
No, they haven't given us direction on whether they're going to take questions, more about what happens after the press conference, that the press pool is going to leave first, and so everyone else has to hold their position. If you've been you've been to these, Terrence, well, anytime there's Secret Service involved, you've got to, there's certain movements that are allowed and certain that aren't, and security is most important, especially in the heightened threat when you've got everything we have going on across our country and all the threats against President Trump and J.D. Vance. There's a hypersensitivity to security and making sure everybody understands what the expectations are.
Of course, as they should be. So I'm curious about the sentiment there in East Palestine about Vice President Vance coming today. I'm sure people see it symbolically as a good gesture, but is this enough? What is the expectation? What is it that many of the people there in East Palestine want to hear from the Vice President, want the Trump administration to do?
Well, it's mainly they're all happy that he's coming. They obviously would love for President Trump to come back as well. Everyone that I spoke to, but everyone had the same message. They want to see something tangible. They don't want to see photo ops like they saw with Joe Biden and Pete Buttigieg. They want to see, what solutions do they have from this, and it'll be interesting to see what sort of tangible solutions if. Again, we're a week into the administration, week and a half into the administration, so it'll be. I don't know if they've even come up with what those solutions are, or if they're coming to find out to try to speak to the people on the ground and get those solutions. So, but that's really everybody on the ground just wants to know what are they actually going to do, and how are they actually going to help the community, and so everyone's waiting for that.
And I think most reasonable people, Ben, would agree that that's a fair sentiment. What are you going to do for me? Yeah, it's nice that you're here, but for the past 2 years I've been suffering, and I need some relief. What are you going to do? I think that's absolutely fair. You've been back and forth to East Palestine probably a half dozen times over the past 2 years. Out of curiosity, how much change have you seen in that community? How different is the East Palestine of today than it was shortly after the train derailment when you were there?
Definitely feels more divided now. You know, initially the community came together, and there was just a sense of, well, let's try to push through this together. There was a lot of fear, and now the division you can really feel. It's just, it was always a quiet town. It's even more of a quiet town. For the first several months, you had a lot of cleanup. You still have some cleanup going on, but it's, now it's just, okay, it's 2 years later. We still don't have resolution. There's really a sense that whatever's going to happen has probably already happened, except now the hope that President Trump is in office. I know, people were had Kamala won, they were basically felt like nothing would ever change, that they would just be abandoned forever. So there's a renewed sense of optimism, hope that something will come of it. But until they actually see it, there's also a sense that government does a lot of talk and really never actually comes through, and that's kind of going back to what we were just talking about. They're tired of having politicians show up and put on a happy face and act like they're president, but not actually do anything. And so I think that's really where everyone's at right now, is just get it done.
That's so understandable.
Help the community. Let's move on.
That's so understandable. It's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Again, you have been there, so you're interacting with people. You're feeling the anxiety, the angst, the anger. I've covered it for the past 2 years from a distance, and even through the TV screen, when you hear people recount kind of what's happening in their lives, when you hear them recount the impact that this has had, it is still heartbreaking, even some 2 years later. So, Ben, just to kind of reset, we are waiting for Vice President J.D. Vance to take the podium here in East Palestine. He is on site. We saw him as he pulled up with his caravan. He stepped out. He was talking to some officials outside. Ben, what are you hearing there on the ground inside this firehouse in terms of an ETA, in terms of what the vice president is doing right now, or when he's going to arrive here at the podium to speak?
Well, we heard about 5 minutes ago that it was going to be about 10 minutes, and so it could be any moment now. There's a lot of people just kind of waiting, a lot of cameras rolling, waiting to see when he comes in. It looks like he's going to be coming in from my right, the right side over here. And so as soon as he does, we will pan over and get him on his way in. And but yeah, he could be coming in any minute now.
Right. And just out of curiosity, it looks to me that the folks standing there behind the podium, are those firefighters, are those East Palestine firefighters? Unfortunately, my eyes are bad in my advanced age, and so I can't see all the emblems on their shirt and that kind of thing, but I suspect they're firefighters. Is that right?
Yeah, everybody that I can see that's behind the podium is part of the fire team.
Okay. All right.
There's a few
this
shirts I can't
go
tell,
ahead.
But yeah, no, there's just, but yeah, that it appears to be all part of the firehouse. And there are 2 fire stations here, so my guess is both. I mean, some they also still have to run the emergency response, so I'm sure there's a few people that aren't here that are out on an engine right now, but as many as could be here to support are here, it appears.
So how long will you still be there, Ben, in East Palestine? Are you going to spend the next couple of days there, or will you be leaving shortly after Vice President Vance wraps up his remarks? And in terms of your reporting, what is it that you're still hoping to learn there in this community?
Yeah, I'll be wrapping up after this. We're going to be linking back up with doing some ICE operations shortly after this, so stay tuned for that as well.
Gotcha. All right, Ben, got to break off really quickly because President Trump is in the Oval Office right now. It sounds like he's signing a new executive order. Let's listen in.
Doing something perhaps with TikTok and perhaps not. If we make the right deal, we'll do it. Otherwise, we won't. But I have the right to do that. And we might put that in the sovereign wealth fund, whatever we make, or if we do a partnership with very wealthy people, a lot of options, but we could put that as an example in the fund, and we have a lot of other things that we could put in the fund. And I think in a short period of time, we'd have one of the biggest funds. And some of them are pretty large, I must tell you. Some of the, like the Saudi Arabia fund, is on the large side, but eventually we'll catch it. But we're going to create a lot of wealth for the fund. And I think it's about time that this country had a sovereign wealth fund. And these two gentlemen and some others are going to work with them very closely, and they'll be heading it up, and they're going to do a great job. Two highly respected people that have done unbelievably well in the world, in the real world. So that's a big deal, huh?
Yes, sir. I think it's going to create value and be of great strategic importance.
Mr. President, why is it important for Elon Musk to have access to the payment systems at Treasury?
Well, he's got access only to letting people go that he thinks are no good if we agree with him, and it's only if we agree with him. He's a very talented guy from the standpoint of management and costs, and we put him in charge of seeing what he can do with certain groups and certain numbers. Some of the numbers are horrible, what he's found. Think of it, $100 million on condoms to Hamas, and many other things that are frankly even more ridiculous. And they're finding tremendous waste, really waste more than anything else, I think you could say. Probably fraud and abuse can be added to it, the more standard waste, fraud, and abuse. But they're finding tremendous amounts of really bad things, bad spending. You've been writing about some of it, frankly, and some of the things that they've been doing is just terrible. Elon can't do and won't do anything without our approval, and we'll give him the approval where appropriate. Where not appropriate, we won't. But he reports in, and it's something that he feels very strongly about, and I'm impressed because he's running, obviously, a big company. It has nothing to do with, there's a conflict that we won't let him get near it, but he does have a good natural instinct. He's got a team of very talented people, and we're trying to shrink government, and he can probably shrink it as well as anybody else, if not better. Where we think there's a conflict or there's a problem, we won't let him go near it. But he has some very good ideas, and we have a lot of very other talented people also. We're bringing in the most talented people in the world. By the way, we just unrelated, but we have two of the most talented people in the world, the legendary Rupert Murdoch and Larry Ellison. So they are two legends in business, publishing, and probably every other. Rupert is Larry pretty much in a class by himself, right? I mean, although you may have a couple of bucks more, I don't know, but Rupert is in a class by himself. He's an amazing guy, and Larry is Larry. Larry's one of the most serious players anywhere in the world. So it's an honor to have you. This has nothing to do with you people, but they're here, and I thought it would be appropriate. I'm sure you didn't recognize them. If you're all going crazy, they're saying, "What are they doing here?"
Thank you, sir.
Mr. President, on the tariffs, is there any chance that Canada or China could also get out of the tariffs after you start to deal with Mexico?
Well, nobody's out with Mexico. We had a great talk with Mexico, and we had President Sheinbaum is a woman. I like her very much. We've had good relationships, but we have to stop fentanyl from coming in, whether I like somebody or not, and we have to stop the illegal aliens from coming in. I think we've lost 200,000 people on average a year for many years, much higher than the 100,000, could be even closer to 300,000. And they've agreed to put in 10,000 soldiers permanently, like forever, 10,000 soldiers at their side of the border and stop fentanyl and illegal aliens from coming into our country. They have a big incentive to do. Other than that, we've agreed to talk and consider various other things. We haven't agreed on tariffs yet, and maybe we will, maybe we won't. But we have a very good relationship. I also spoke with Prime Minister Trudeau of Canada, and we had a good talk in the morning, but I did ask him a couple of questions, like, banks aren't allowed to do business in Canada. Canada is very tough. Canada is very, we're not treated well by Canada, and we have to be treated well. Banks are not, as an example, allowed. Did you know that American banks are not allowed to do business in Canada? Can you believe that? And that's one of many things, and we talked about, and I think we'll win most of the subjects. But for some reason, a lot of things have been very unfair with Canada. I noticed that in the first term. You deal with people, and after a while you begin to realize, like you learn that Larry Ellison's very tough to do business with, okay? He's a very tough guy. I mean, I'm sure you're shocked to hear that. But Canada is very tough. They're very, very tough to do business with. And we can't let them take advantage of the U.S. They don't take our agricultural product for the most part. They don't take our cars. They make cars, but they basically don't take our cars. And, you know, we don't need, and look, I think we're going to have another good conversation today. We're actually speaking at 3 o'clock again. But we don't need them to make our cars. We don't need them to give us lumber. We don't need them for agricultural products because we have all the agriculture we need. They don't take our agricultural product for the most part, our milk and dairy, etc. A little bit they do, but not much. We take theirs. And as far as cars are concerned, they took in a big percentage, almost 19% of the market. And, you know, I wouldn't mind making our cars in the United States, so we have a problem there. I'd like to make our cars in the U.S. We don't need Canada to make our cars. With that being said, we're going to have another call at 3 o'clock. We had a call this morning. It was a pretty good call, I'd say. So the call with Mexico went very well in the sense that they're very strong now on the border. They're going to put soldiers there. So, actually, they're best military soldiers. And they're going to be at the border, 10,000. That's a lot of soldiers. And they want to protect it also. You know, they don't want people running through Mexico, coming through Mexico to come into our country. So they're going to do that. And then we're going to talk about other things over the next 30 days, we're going to have Scott, Howard, and Marco Rubio, Secretary of State, lead the delegation. And we're going to have a big negotiation with Mexico. I'll be involved too, and President Sheinbaum will be involved to see whether or not we can work something out on the tariffs. China will be speaking to China probably over the next 24 hours.
On fentanyl and China, President Trump.
We don't want fentanyl coming into our country. Now, we had another big thing, speaking of China. China's involved with the Panama Canal. They won't be for long. And that's the way it has to be. Marco just got back, as you know. He's in the process of coming back. I guess he's almost back by now. And he had a very long conversation with the leader of Panama, the respected man, and some others, the entire leadership group. And we're trying to work a deal on the Panama Canal. The Panama Canal was given foolishly years ago it shouldn't have been happened, years ago to Panama, like Jimmy Carter and the group. We lost 38,000 people building the Panama Canal, like one of the great wonders of the world. It's the biggest job we've ever built, the biggest project we've ever built in this country, dollar-wise and every other way. 38,000 people died, Americans, all men, just about, laborers and construction people. They went to Panama. The mosquito got them. Between mosquito and snakes, we lost 38,000 people. It was the most expensive project ever built by the United States. The biggest, most expensive project we ever built 110 years ago. If you bring it up to now, it would have been the equivalent of $2 trillion. The most expensive we ever built, and we gave it away for $1, okay? We gave it away essentially for nothing. And we either want it back or we're going to get something very strong, or we're going to take it back. And China will be dealt with. And we didn't give that to China. We gave it to Panama. We shouldn't have given it to Panama. But Panama, as you know, has violated the agreement, totally violated the agreement. So that's in the process right now. But they did have a very good meeting with the head of Panama.
In addition to tariffs on China, could you say your current thinking about whether China should be forced to pay reparations both for fentanyl deaths and the million COVID?
No, I haven't talked about that, but they do have tariffs. Honestly, nobody, the amount of money that was lost and most importantly, the lives lost because of COVID is not something that anybody could ever even imagine. It's probably $60 trillion, and all the countries in the world don't have $60 trillion. The amount of death and the amount of destruction and the amount of money lost is probably $60 trillion. I had it figured by people about 3 months ago. I was just figure it out. Nobody knows what the real number is, but it's almost an infinite number. The damage done, but I have not discussed that. What I have discussed is we'll have some good meetings with China. We have meetings planned, and we'll see what happens. But that was just an opening salvo. If we can't make a deal with China, then the tariffs will be very, very substantial. Okay, I'm going to sign this one.
Sir, this is, you've obviously made making America healthy again a key priority of this administration. A key component of that is obviously heart health. This is a ceremonial proclamation declaring the month of February to be National Heart Month.
Okay. I hear we're doing very well with nominations. We'll see, but it looks like we're doing very well with nominations.
Mr. President, have you been involved with calling senators who had some concerns about Tulsi Gabbard or
Yes.
RFK?
Yeah, I've gotten great response. And they want to do what's right, and we've had a good response. I think we'll do well. We have great people like this. We have great people coming in. I think I'd like to say the best ever recruited for government. I think we have the finest people ever recruited for government.
Will it take an active Congress?
And you know what? You're starting to see that because we've done more in 2 weeks than Biden's done in 5 years, 6 years. They could be here between him and Obama. You add it up, okay? We've done more in 2 weeks than they've done in 12 years.
Will it take an active Congress to do away with USAID, or do you believe you have?
I don't know. I don't think so. No, if not when it comes to fraud. If there's fraud, these people are lunatics. And if it comes to fraud, you wouldn't have an active Congress. And I'm not sure that you would anyway. But we just want to do the right thing. It's something that should have been done a long time ago. It went crazy during the Biden administration. They went totally crazy what they were doing, and the money they were giving to people that shouldn't be getting it, and to agencies and others that shouldn't be getting it. It was a shame. So they're tremendous fraud. But we'll be doing a report. We'll be giving you that report at the appropriate time.
Yeah. In the first term, though, USAID was something that you liked in some respects.
I love the concept of it.
That's the program.
Sure. I love the concept, but they turn out to be radical left lunatics. And the concept of it is good, but it's all about the people.
Mr. President, you said you also want to impose tariffs on the EU. What kind of tariffs are you thinking about?
Well, we have massive deficits with the European Union, massive, like $350 billion, if you can believe it. They don't take our farm product. They don't take our cars. They don't take almost anything, but we take their cars. We have millions of cars coming in, BMW and Mercedes-Benz and Volkswagen and just so many different cars, and we don't do anything about that. And we don't charge them tariffs. They make it impossible to sell cars in the European Union. They make it very difficult, agricultural product. They actually don't take it. And they have a lot of excuses. Some of them are the pesticides and the different chemicals used. And Bobby Kennedy actually is looking at that very, very seriously, because maybe it's not necessary to use all of that. You know, we want to be the healthiest country, and we're not. We spend more money on food than anybody else in terms of its creation, but we're not the healthiest country. So maybe there is something to the fact that we shouldn't be using so much chemical, and maybe that'll stop. But Bobby Kennedy is the one, because he is not a believer in all of the things we have done, and neither are the Europeans. So we'll see what happens. But they use it as an excuse not to buy our product. And I asked a couple of the leaders, I don't want to use names, but how many Chevrolets or Fords do you see in the middle of Munich? And the answer is none, because they don't take any cars. They don't take anything. So the European has abused the United States for years, and they can't do that. And they want to make a deal. Let me tell you, in all cases, they all want to make deals. There's nobody that doesn't want to make deals. They've been abusers, and they want to make deals. So we'll see about that. But we'll have, I think, some very fair. All we want is a fair deal. And, there's a word, reciprocal. I'd go right now, reciprocal tariffs on everybody. Because many of the countries that you feel so horrible about, the way they're being treated by Trump, you're saying, oh, President Trump is so terrible to them. Well, they charge us tariffs. European Union has a VAT tax, which is through the roof, okay? It's a similar thing, similar to a tariff. It's a VAT. And they have it, and it's numbers like you wouldn't believe. And Canada, I told you about the banks, and I told you they charge us. And people don't say that. They don't like to say it. Just like they don't like to say that I opened up the water for California. It's a great thing. It's too bad they didn't do it themselves. I had to do it, and it was not easy. We did it a very rough way. And I didn't like to do it a rough way. We shouldn't have to do it a rough way. But a lot of these countries that we're talking about, they're so-called allies, but they don't treat us well. And just like I got $420 billion, and now it's actually over $600 billion. The Secretary General of NATO came in 2 weeks ago, and he said it was a miracle when President Trump came into NATO. He said it was $636 billion by saying to them, no, you have to pay. And if you don't pay, we're not going to be there for you. Somebody has to say it, and they paid. And it was a large amount of money. And one of the problems we have with the Russia-Ukraine situation is that we wanted to see some equalization, because we're in for close to $300 billion, and they're in for $200 billion less. Why are they in for less? Because Biden never asked them for money. He never said, you got to pay. He never did. All he did is hand out money. So we're talking with them right now, and we're actually working some deals right now. So we have some guarantees and some other things to keep that whole situation going. We're telling Ukraine they have very valuable rare earth. We want what we put up to go in terms of a guarantee. We want a guarantee. We're handing them money hand over fist. We're giving them equipment. European is not keeping up with us. They should equalize. And look, we have an ocean in between. They don't. It's more important for them than it is for us. But they're way below us in terms of money. And they should be paying at least equal. They should really be paying much more than us, but let's say equal to us, and they're billions and billions of dollars below. So we're looking to do a deal with Ukraine where they're going to secure what we're giving them with their rare earth and other things.
Mr. President, the judge's deal with Mexico this morning, was that partially related to the market reaction and a criticism from Mr. Murdoch's own newspaper? He called it the dumbest trade war on the editorial page on Saturday.
I'm going to have to talk to him. I've been right over the Wall Street Journal many times, I will tell you. I don't agree with him on some things. No, it's not only is it not dumb, you're going to see. Every single one of those countries is dying to make a deal. You know why? Because they're ripping us off really badly. And the United States is tired of just being ripped off. And that's why we have $36 trillion in debt. We have it for a reason, because we make bad deals with everybody. And we don't allow that anymore. So the Wall Street Journal is wrong, because very simply, every single country that you're writing about right now is dying to make a deal, because the deals they have right now are so good and so good for them and so profitable for them. You didn't know that Canada didn't allow our banks. You didn't know all of these different things. And I think in the end, you're going to see that Either very, very substantial tariffs are going to be paid by them, or they're going to make some kind of a deal.
So sorry, or did Mexican President Sheinbaum?
Did what?
Did you blink this morning?
There was no blinking. No, she's a wonderful woman, but she did agree to 10,000 soldiers on the border. I would say that's a lot. Would you say that's pretty good? 10,000 soldiers on the border?
Sir,
and the 10,000 soldiers are going to keep illegal aliens out, and they're going to keep them out, seriously out, and otherwise they're going to have a big penalty. Mexico's going to be penalized. They're not going to come through Mexico anymore, and they're not going to let the fentanyl come in from China. And China hopefully is going to stop sending us fentanyl, and if they're not, the tariffs are going to go substantially higher.
Sir, just to clarify what you said about Ukraine earlier, the rare earths, is that something you want them to give the rare earths to the United States?
Yeah. I want to have security of rare earth. We're putting in hundreds of billions of dollars. They have great rare earth, and I want security of the rare earth. And they're willing to do it.
Sir, you mentioned earlier that you on Canada, when you talk to Justin Trudeau again, is there anything he can give you at 3 p.m. when you talk again to also
I don't know.
Pause,
I don't know.
like you said with Mexico?
I don't know. We have big deficits with Canada, like we do with all countries. I mean, I look at some of the deals made, I say, who the hell made these deals are so bad? But with Canada, I have a talk with him, and you maybe know or maybe not. We're going to meet again or talk again at 3 o'clock, right after my next meeting, and we'll see what happens. I can't tell you what's going to happen.
You mentioned that he could agree to change your mind on the tariff.
Well, we can always look. What I'd like to see, Canada become our 51st state. We give them protection, military protection. We don't need them to build our cars. I'd rather see Detroit or South Carolina or any one of our Tennessee, any one of our states build the cars. They could do it very easily. We don't need them for the cars. We don't need them for lumber. We don't need them for anything. We don't need them for energy. We have more energy than they do. We don't need them for energy. So I say, why are we doing this? Why are we willing to lose between $100 billion and $200 billion a year? We don't need them. As a state, it's different. As a state, it's much different. And there are no tariffs. So I'd love to see that, but some people say that would be a long shot. If people wanted to play the game right, it would be 100% certain that they'd become a state. But a lot of people don't like to play the game because they don't have a threshold of pain. And there would be some pain, but not a lot. The pain would be really there. So we're going to meet again by phone at 3 o'clock, and we'll let you know what
on Israel, President Trump, you're prepared to meet with Benjamin Netanyahu.
Coming in tomorrow.
Yes, you've mentioned in the past you're concerned about Israel being too small geographically. Would you support annexation of parts of the West Bank by Israel?
Well, I'm not going to talk about that. It certainly is a small. It's a small country in terms of land. See this pen, this wonderful pen? My desk is the Middle East. And this pen, the top of the pen, that's Israel. That's not good, right? You know, that's a pretty big difference. I use that as an analogy. It's pretty accurate, actually. It's a pretty small piece of land. And it's amazing that they've been able to do what they've been able to do when you think about it. There's a lot of good, smart brain power, but it is a very small piece of land, no question about it.
Mr. President, you said earlier that Elon Musk is doing everything with your say-so. So is there everything that he has done thus far, going to all the agencies, shutting off access, getting access to federal payments, that all has yours? You're okay with all of that?
For the most part, yeah. If there was something that didn't have my okay, I'd let you know about it really fast.
And you said there's some areas where you wouldn't let him work because he has conflicts of interest.
If there was no, I haven't seen that. And he would know not to do it. So we haven't had that yet. But if there was a conflict, we would let him work in that area.
Earlier you said, with regard to Panama, that they were going to make a deal where the U.S. was going to take it. How long do they have to make that sort of deal? And are you still leaving on the table?
We're going to meet with Panama on Friday at about 3:30 in the afternoon by phone, and maybe there'll be some representatives here or there. But we're going to be talking to Panama on Friday, essentially, and they've agreed to certain things, but I'm not happy with it. It's
On
not-
the Middle East, Mr. President, if I may, do you still have doubts that the ceasefire will hold?
On what?
On the Middle East, do you think the ceasefire will hold?
I have no assurances that it'll hold. I mean, I've seen people brutalized. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. No, I have no guarantees that the peace is going to hold. Steve, you might want to say something about that. Steve Woodcock.
It's holding so far. So, and we're certainly hopeful, and that's the president's direction. Get the hostages out and save lives and come to hopefully a peaceful settlement of it all. So far it's holding.
Mr. President, on a different topic, questionnaires have been going out to FBI agents across the country who were involved potentially in the investigation. Do you believe anyone involved at any level should be fired, sir?
Well, I think the FBI was a very corrupt institution, and I'm a victim of it in a true sense. I was able to beat it, but other people have been treated horribly. I think the FBI had a great reputation. I think its reputation was really damaged badly, as is DOJ. Look at what they've done in terms of weaponization. Look at what they've done to a political opponent. Probably got me elected by what they did, or I think I was doing well anyway, but they might have got me elected. But you know what? We have to have pristine, beautiful, perfect law enforcement. And what we want to do, and Cash is the one to do it. He's the one guy that is going to do it. We have to bring the reputation of the FBI. We have to bring the fact of the FBI back to what it could be. Not even to what it was, even better than it ever was. Because who would have thought that the FBI could have been corrupted like they were corrupted? Who would have thought that would have happened? Who would have thought they would have been used to go after, political opponents, essentially, but me being the number one, and so many other things beyond that. And they've been hurt very badly, and we'll see what happens. But Cash is the one to do it, and I hear he's doing very well. Cash will straighten it out. We have great confidence that we can make the FBI great again. Okay, one or two more and we'll be done.
Tulsi Gabbard's nomination is...
Say it?
Tulsi Gabbard.
Yeah, I think Tulsi's going to be doing okay. I'm not sure. I can't guarantee anything, but she's liked by so many people, especially people in the military and law enforcement.
She has a little bit of trouble with some senators over her thoughts on Edward Snowden. I know Snowden, you've mentioned in the past you're thinking about pardoning him. Are you still, and what do you think about that?
No, I don't talk about it right now. I just, people feel very differently. Some people think he should be pardoned, and some people think it would be a terrible thing to do, but I don't get involved in that.
Mr. President, what are you discussing with Mr. Murdoch and Mr. Ellison?
Just respect. I have great respect for Rupert Murdoch. I disagree with him a lot of times with the Wall Street Journal, but that's all right. We've disagreed before, and I'm sure they didn't have any idea what they were talking about, because already you see what's happening. Look at Colombia. Look at what happened with that. Everybody said that with Colombia it was going to be a disaster. In one hour, everything was settled. You know why? Tariffs. Without tariffs, they wouldn't have been the same way. They would not have treated me the way they treated me, which was extremely nicely. And I don't want to use countries. I don't want to use names, but tariffs are very powerful, both economically and in getting everything else you want. Tariffs for us, nobody can compete with us because we're the pot of gold. But if we don't keep winning and keep doing well, we won't be the pot of gold, and then tariffs won't be so good for us. But when you're the pot of gold, the tariffs are very good. They're very powerful, and they're going to make our country very rich again. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, guys.
I don't know.
Thank you, guys. Let's go.
How is the market doing?
Hey, guys. Thank you, guys. Thank you, guys. Let's go.
It did? I don't know. I don't think about it. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
All right, so ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard today's edition of Human Events Daily here in Washington, D.C. Today is February 3rd, 2025. And Dominique, President Trump there just giving a complete round-robin press conference inside the Oval Office, signing those executive orders. And look, the president there, he's willing to say what needs to be said. Tulsi Gabbard, boom, she's going to be getting in at DNI. Ash Patel, boom, going over to the FBI. And he said, well, we're going to have to straighten them out. Just going to have to straighten them out. Because you see, boys and girls, the problem now that we have with the FBI is they are not acting in the sense of greatness. No, they're really not. No, and we're going to have to make them great again. And that's what President Trump said there. And of course, he's in the process of doing so through the acting Attorney General, Ryan Emmel. And this is the case. And by the way, they have until 3 p.m. today. So you got one more hour. You got one more hour, FBI. You got one more hour because there's no options. There's no more options. File your answers to your questionnaire and come back. And by the way, now hear all this news about them going after the Doge employees and overall, I'm getting some reports already on this, and we're going to be digging into this a little bit more. But I'm hearing reports of Doge employees being doxxed, of their addresses going up, of their families' addresses going up. Guess what? That's a crime. All right, that is a crime. That is criminal behavior. And if anyone tries swatting or anything like that, guess what? Now you're threatening government officials. So we're going to look into all this. Of course, USAID, huge protests going on over there. I don't know if huge, actually, I should say. Maybe it's sizable. It's a sizable protest, not a huge protest. It's sizable. But they're going after Elon Musk there, as well as Doge. We got a lot going on today, so stay tuned. Human Events Daily will continue.
Allegiance Flag Supply believes American flags should be made in America.
Our symbol of freedom made outside our borders, that did not sit right.
Join us in our mission to keep the American flag truly American. Don't settle for flags made elsewhere.
Every flag is proudly crafted in the USA with superior materials.
Visit showallegiance.com to order your high-quality, made-in-America flag today. That's showallegiance.com.
When a cyber thief transfers the title of your home out of your name, it's a race against time to stop the theft of your hard-earned equity.
Many people don't know this has happened until long after it's done.
You as the homeowner think you still own a house. 3 months later, you start getting foreclosure notices and you realize you've got 4 mortgages on your house that you didn't even know existed.
So when's the last time you checked on the title to your home? Find out if you're already a victim at HomeTitleLock.com.
America is celebrating the start of President Trump's second term. Now, for a limited time, you can get the Kid's Guide to President Trump and a limited edition collectible pin for free. Hurry, supplies are very limited. Visit freetrumpbundle.com now. That's freetrumpbundle.com.
The bathroom of your dreams is only a phone call away with BCI Bath and Shower. We can make your ordinary bath and shower extraordinary. This is not a cookie cutter design. This is a complete custom build that will fit your every need, and discounts for seniors and military.
This is what happens when the fourth turning meets fifth generation warfare.
A commentator, international social media sensation, and former Navy intelligence veteran.
This is Human Events with your host, Jack Posobiec.
Christ is King.
All right, this is Jack Sobek. You are listening to Human Events Daily. Wanted to welcome the Salem News audience. It's an honor to be here. We go now live to JD Vance, where he's taking questions in East Palestine.
I do think that we continue to need to do better at rail safety in this country. And I even talked to the fire chief a little bit. He's got strong views about rail safety, probably how we can make the bill a little bit better, but also how we can make sure that common sense rail safety makes its way into our public laws. Henry, you got a question? Sure. Focus on East Palestine, at least for the next couple of questions. Yeah.
You're talking about the cleanup that has to be done here, both economically and environmentally. What definitive actions can the people here depend on from your administration to get that done?
Well, I think the first and most definitive question is that Natalie, is that right? Okay, good. I have a good memory. The first and most important and concrete promise is that we're going to be transparent.
The atmosphere went out into the town, went into the water, went into the rivers. And so the questions, of course, was why was it that at the time you had people like Governor Josh Shapiro, like Governor DeWine, like they weren't even interested in the interests of the townsfolk, the interests of the people. And that was the day that J.D. Vance himself flew from Washington, D.C. He'd only been senator for about 1 month at that point.
With the people here. I think the second thing that we need to do.
Think about the background.
And we certainly commit to
He'd only been senator for about 1 month. And he flies out to East Palestine and says, something here is not right. They are lying to us, and we need to do something about it. All right. I'm told we have J.D. back. Let's go to that now.
The long-term air tests, term health testing, and that's something that we're going to fight to make sure that we do over the next few years of this administration. Because again, to rebuild this community, and I think it's a beautiful place. It's got great workers. It's got incredible natural landscape. It's got great people, but people have to be confident that they can invest in a business here, that they can build a business here, that they can raise a family here. That's going to take the long-term commitment, I think, of the Environmental Protection Agency, but of the whole administration, and that's certainly something that people here should expect, and they'll have.
Sure. In speaking with residents here over the past 2 years, one of the things that they tell us at News Nation is that they want a federal disaster declaration so that federal funds can come in so that they can get Medicare and they can get long-term health monitoring. I know the previous governor, has asked for this. When I spoke with you last year, you asked President Biden to sign this. Will the Trump administration declare a disaster here so people can get these resources that they need?
Yeah, so the long-term health monitoring, by the way, is something that we're very focused on, and I'm personally very focused on. It's something that my Senate office worked a great deal on, and frankly was very disappointed that the Biden administration wasn't willing to meet us halfway there. We're going to do a lot there, and I think there's a lot that could be done. On the disaster declaration, it's an interesting question because a disaster declaration may have been very helpful 18 months ago. I don't know that it's still helpful today. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask the governor behind me. I'm going to talk to Lee about this, and I'm going to say, is a disaster declaration still helpful? Because if the answer is yes, then I'm going to take that message back to Washington. But the answer may well be no. Right? Because we're not in the same phase of this thing now that we were 2 years ago. Thank God for that. We're going to do right by the community. That answer may not be the same as it was 18 months ago, but we're still going to work at it.
Yeah. In talking to locals as we have the last 2 years, many of them say that they're now worse off than they were before.
Yes.
They're closing their businesses, selling their businesses. What can you tell them now in this forum that they're going to hear at some point in the next 24 hours that leaves them thinking this is not just more lip service that they have heard for the last 2 years?
So I guess what I'd ask him is first of all, you're right. A lot of people in East Palestine have dealt with unspeakable tragedy and then economic calamity on top of that. I've talked to a lot of local businesses just here today who have lost customers, who feel like the bottom line is a lot worse than it was before this disaster happened. And that's local retailers, that's oil and gas businesses. But I guess what I'd ask them is don't give up on this community because we're not going to give up on this community. And it's not always going to be easy, and I'm not going to be able to take away the 2 years of economic pain that have been caused by this train disaster. But you do now have a government that cares about you, that's going to work on these problems, and isn't going to snap its fingers and fix everything, because that's not how any of this works, but is going to fight every single day to make sure you get the infrastructure, the redevelopment aid, and certainly the health and environmental aid that you need to get back on your feet. I really do believe that if we work this the right way, that if the federal government, the state government, the EPA administrator, and the people on the ground are willing to work for this community, then we're going to do better by East Palestine than we have over the last couple of years. That's certainly my commitment to this community. Okay, John.
We talked rail safety probably more than anything over the last 2 years. When you introduced it, you spoke for yourself, you spoke for the constituents of Ohio. You now speak for the administration.
Sure.
Does the administration stand behind the Rail Safety Act as you introduced it?
Well, John, the president endorsed the Rail Safety Act, of course, when it came out. And so certainly I think that we can say with confidence the president shares my view that we need some common sense rail safety. And yes, that is something that we're going to work on over the next couple of years. It's something that I think that we have a much better shot at, frankly, with Republicans in charge. Remember, we had the legislation. It was bipartisan. We had it in a place where it would have passed the United States Senate. Chuck Schumer just refused to bring it up to the floor for a vote. And so, yeah, I think things are a little bit different this time, and we're going to make sure we get this right.
Mr. Vice President.
Now, Henry asked me a question about tariffs. Let me say this, Henry. So I think for a couple of, look, not just a couple of years, for 40 years, with one very obvious exception, I think that we have had successive administrations who have not recognized that America's economic power is not just a source of prosperity, but is also something that we should be willing to put to use to make the American people safer and healthier. And unfortunately, we have had, especially at our southern border, a southern neighbor, and I think an important ally if they want to be, who has not taken their basic responsibility seriously about securing their own border and doing basic law enforcement within their own country. Now, what's happened? What's happened is that even in communities like East Palestine, you've seen a massive explosion in the amount of deadly, poisonous fentanyl that exists in this country. We've seen the toll in orphan children, in families who have lost loved ones, in over 100,000 lives per year, most of which have come, 100,000 lives per year lost to drug overdose, most of which have come from the fentanyl problem. Mexico has got to do a better job, and President Trump's message is very simple. We are done being taken advantage of. Now, actually, I was in the air. I talked to the president very briefly about this. He spoke with the president of Mexico this morning, and the president of Mexico committed to putting 10,000 additional Mexican troops on that southern border, our southern border, of course, the Mexicans' northern border, to take law enforcement more seriously, to go after those Mexican drug cartels a little bit more aggressively. So for literally 3 days, I heard the far left in this country say that these tariffs would make Americans' lives worse off. And what actually happened is the Mexican government was so afraid of the tariffs that they actually are taking their border enforcement and their anti-cartel activity more seriously. That is not a pathway to making Americans worse off. That's a pathway to making Americans better off. Now, the president has also been very clear that we have to rebalance our trade relationship in this country. Every single country, if you look, even our northern neighbors, Canada, do Americans realize that the Canadians charge massive, massive tariffs on our products that go into the country of Canada, including on our great agricultural products that people right here in the state of Ohio depend on? Well, if the Canadians are going to use their economic power to penalize Americans, I think it's totally reasonable for the American president to say, we're done being taken advantage of. We, of course, want to have a great relationship with Canada, but that goes both directions. And that's all his conduct and his activity over the last few days was about. We're done being taken advantage of in this country. We have got to rebalance the trade relationship between ourselves and our allies, ourselves and our adversaries. President Trump is committed to that, and tariffs is one tool that he's going to use to accomplish it.
Listening, talking to folks today and over the last few years, the biggest thing they heard is they don't want this to happen in other community. What are some of those action items you heard talking to the folks during your visit today? You can take back to D.C. kind of, all right, let's hit the ground running on these things.
Yeah, so it's interesting. Most of what I heard today was actually concerns about economic development. Okay, but of course, I've been to East Palestine. This is my, I think, 5th or 6th visit. I've heard a lot about the concerns related to rail safety. And I think there are a few very basic common sense things that can be done. And look, some of this the railways are already doing, but some of this I truly believe is going to have to happen through things like the Railway Safety Act. Number one, you've got to inspect these cars more before they go off. You've got to better use technology to monitor when a train is about to have a catastrophic failure. These are all things that were sort of built into the infrastructure of the Railway Safety Act, and it's something we're going to keep on working on. Look, this can't happen again. As much as I believe in East Palestine, and I really do believe in this community and its people, what they're rebuilding through shouldn't have happened. It's not their fault, and if we can take any learning from this, it's hopefully not to force another community to go through it again.
Residents still want more assurance.
So to Lee Zeldin, one of the things that was done, the question that's still raised is why the initial burn was allowed to happen from the EPA standpoint in the first place. And then when that plume went across into Pennsylvania and other states, a lot of testing wasn't done there. Back to what you were just talking about, the tariffs. So much money was spent on foreign countries, on allowing illegals into our southern border. A lot of this community feels like they've been abandoned, and it's been addressed already. But what is going to be done tangibly that you can see going forward that may address some of those? Will be more testing done on areas that haven't been tested yet, more funding, or holding Norfolk Southern accountable, more than the $70,000 they've offered per person?
Yeah, so a couple of quick things on that, and I'll take one more question, then we'll have to hit the road. So if you go back to the original promises that Norfolk Southern made, right? One, there was a big settlement for all the people who were personally injured from the disaster. I'm not talking about the environmental problems. I'm talking about those who were directly injured, like some of the chief's firefighters who sacrificed and need to be compensated for it. It turns out that a lot of those compensation promises have not been met, even though they've been built into court orders. That is unacceptable. We're going to talk to Norfolk Southern about it. Another Norfolk Southern promise is we talked about building a training facility in East Palestine that would train firefighters from Pennsylvania, West Virginia, and Ohio. But also, and the governor made this point to me privately, unfortunately, the firefighters behind me know more about how to deal with a railway disaster than almost any firefighting corps in the entire country. Let's turn that into knowledge that we can spread across this tri-state area and actually make better firefighters, or at least more well-trained firefighters, out of that process. Well, Norfolk Southern promised they were going to provide the money to build that training facility, and every single person to a man has told me that money has not come. Well, that's unacceptable too. So I think that a lot of this comes down to making sure the promises of Norfolk Southern actually turn from promises into reality, and that's something we're going to work on and certainly take back to Washington.
Residents still want more assurance, Vice President, residents still want more assurance that any health concerns in the future will be covered, and they also want further health studies, which may be highly unlikely if the administration is making cuts to agencies like the National Institute of Health and the CDC. So what will you do about this?
Well, first of all, I'd say cutting ridiculous bureaucracy is actually facilitates providing important services to people here on the ground. We all know that we have a government that wastes too much money, frankly, where there's a lot of fraud built into how our government spends money. And one of the things that does is waste taxpayer dollars. But the other thing that it does is it ensures that the money that we have in our resources at the federal government don't end up going to the people who actually deserve it. And so President Trump's desire to bring some efficiency back to the federal government, that's not going to be bad for the people of East Palestine. It's actually going to ensure that the resources we spend on health actually go to people on the ground rather than bureaucrats. And frankly, we're not talking about a lot of money. When I was working on this with the Biden administration, we needed $5 million to start the long-term health study that we wanted to start.
Stop buzzing in my ear about the boring people at your office and trying to listen to the new Human Events with Jack Posobiec.
All right, Jack Posobiec, we are back here, Human Events Daily. Let's continue with J.D. Vance in East Palestine.
Confidence that they can raise a family in health and safety here in this community. Now, I believe that's true. But the only way that other people are going to believe that's true is if folks like Lee Zeldin at the EP and the broader administration take those health and safety concerns seriously. I promise the people of East Palestine we are taking those concerns seriously, and we will do so for the remainder of President Trump's administration. God bless you guys. Thank you for being here.
unplug? Can you unplug me? You guys unplug this piece? Which one is all the ones that we just, all the full ones? There's no more sound. Coming through anyway. Yeah, that one. Just push the button.
Sorry.
There we go. Thank you.
All right, so that was J.D. Vance there, East Palestine. Really, and you can see him there. He's walking, meeting with the people. He's with the mayor. We remember, of course, when President Trump visited back 2 years ago. This really was a turning point in, I want to say, President Trump's 2024 election, even though, of course, it took place in 2023. This was just a huge turning point in the Biden administration where so many people across the spectrum, across the aisle, were just upset. They were incensed that the Biden administration and Josh Shapiro DeWine would allow this huge explosion of gaseous chemicals out into the public, that they weren't doing anything for these people. Of course, it exploded across social media as well, and at least in terms of the aftermath. And so many people asking questions about the health, about the safety, about what was going on there. There were so many problems and people really wanting to do something about it. And that really set the tone for the new Trump administration. This idea that it isn't going to be business as usual. It's going to be full on nationalist populism. And that's exactly where he came down. And that's exactly what you're seeing now, whether it be Panama, whether it be these tariffs, Canada, Mexico, whether it be Greenland, whether it be the rest of it. It's what benefits the American people first. And now I wanted to talk communications a little bit, because there was big news that just popped over at the FCC that a huge, and Semaphor's got the piece, a large critic of big tech is taking a top legal position at a key agency that could target Google, Meta, and their rivals. Oh, sorry, Zuckerberg. I don't know about that. Because you've got Adam Candob, an architect of one of the efforts to revoke legal protections for social media, is now going to be general counsel of the FCC. Well, here joining us to talk about all of this and more is Alam Bukhari. He is the managing director at the Foundation for Freedom Online. Alam, how's it going, man?
How's it going, Jack? Great to be on your show.
So talk to me about some of the things that you guys are working on over at the Foundation for Freedom. Everybody knows, of course, Mike Ben's over there. People know your background well, by the way, leaking the Google video back in 2016 saying that we're never going to let Donald Trump win again. This will never happen again. Well, I guess they screwed up because he's back, baby. Alan, what are we seeing when it comes to the FCC front, when it comes to the regulatory front from the new administration?
Well, the FCC front is going great, frankly, and you just mentioned the appointment of Professor Candob. He is, that's a fantastic choice in my view. He was one of the big heroes of the first Trump administration in terms of attempting to push back on tech censorship. He did a lot of work in that first Trump administration. I've known him for a long time. He will be a warrior against online censorship. And broadly speaking, the news has been very good. The FCC, the new chairman, Brendan Carr, also fantastic on the censorship issue. The FTC chairman, Andrew Ferguson, also places a high priority on that issue, which is very important considering the amount of oversight the FTC has over the private sector and, the advertising sector in particular, which has been such a, force of collusion in the past, waging ad boycotts against X and all sorts of other platforms. There is one concerning trend I see, and I hate to be the bearer of bad news because there've been so many wins lately, just win after win after win, and they keep coming. I've spotted one concerning trend. We published a big report about it at the Foundation for Freedom Online, and that is the strange ascendancy of Microsoft in Washington, D.C. under Trump. A very strange ascendancy because Microsoft, as you'll see from our report, was one of the absolute worst offenders when it came to censorship in the last 8 years. And unlike Facebook and X, they haven't really walked back any of it, as far as I can tell. And yet, you've got OpenAI getting this 500 billion AI investment deal that was, announced by the president. You've got Microsoft in the running to acquire TikTok, which would, give them enormous influence over the US media ecosystem. And now, see today, OpenAI launched something called ChatGPT Government, which is a ChatGPT agent specifically built for government agencies. So they're trying to get some of those contracts. And, why is this concerning? It's concerning because Microsoft has, as I said, has not walked back any of their censorship programs. So, just one example, they're still partnered with NewsGuard. NewsGuard is a private company that exists to build blacklists of disfavored media sources, which are then sells.
That's exactly right. Alan, we're coming up on a quick break, but I want to hold you over because we need to dig deeper into this, and we'll have much longer time to that when we come back. Human Events Daily, Alan Bakari, Foundation for Freedom Online. Right back.
America has the greatest economy in the world, but I think most of us would agree we have a problem. The cost of almost everything is up. Home prices, rent, food, insurance. Every sector has taken a hit, including automotive. More Americans are keeping their cars for longer, including me. And one way that we can make life more affordable is CarShield, America's #1 auto protection company.
CarShield's rated A+ with the Better Business Bureau and named America's most trusted auto protection company.
With CarShield, drivers could save thousands on covered parts and systems like your engine, transmission, entertainment system, and more. It's the protection that I trust, just like these other happy customers.
With CarShield, saving the $2,700 has been a real blessing. I love CarShield. It is my lifeline.
Our life as nurses, we just step up and we help people, and it's really nice when somebody steps up and helped us. If our car breaks down, CarShield administrators have our back.
If your car's out of warranty, it's not a matter of if it'll break down, but when. Call CarShield before it's too late and protect yourself from expensive car repairs.
CarShield is ready to help year-round nationwide with thousands of vetted shops to choose from, or their concierge service to help you find a mechanic near you. Unlike other companies, they don't just send you to the cheapest place in town. I trust CarShield, and so should you.
I have filed a total of over 5 claims, and my price from when I signed up never went up. And with the age of my car, that is security.
CarShield is a U.S. company supporting hardworking Americans save over $1 billion in expensive auto repair costs. More of us are keeping our cars for longer, so give CarShield a call now before a breakdown happens. Call now.
Call CarShield now before a breakdown and see how they're saving drivers money on covered auto repairs. Call 800-635-5126. 800-635-5126.
Most bad guys do things for money. The equity in your home was a treasure trove for the bad guys. By downloading one simple document, forging your name onto that document, and using a fake notary stamp, the bad guy can transfer your home's title into their name. Home Title Lock has 24/7 monitoring of your home's title, and any change, you will be alerted. Go to HomeTitleLock.com. The peace of mind that offers is invaluable.
Are you over 50? Would you like to get up to 33% more income in retirement? Call now and get this free book, Annuity Do's and Don'ts for Baby Boomers, from a leading financial firm on maximizing your income in retirement. And if you call right now, as a bonus, we'll throw in a free annuity rate report. Don't miss out on this opportunity because supplies are limited. Both books are yours free, just for calling Annuity General today.
Call 800-899-6246.
Welcome back to this Real America's Voice News Break. I'm Terrence Bates. Let's take you right back to East Palestine, Ohio, where Vice President J.D. Vance just wrapped up remarks moments ago. Our Ben Bergholm on the ground there with the very latest. Ben, the long and short of it seemed to be we're going to study the ongoing situation here in East Palestine, and we'll see what we can do.
Yeah, that's really it. I mean, there is just an overwhelming sense that an understanding that the community was done wrong, and that this new administration, that President Trump, J.D. Vance, this is a high priority. And you heard Lee Zeldin say, this is the highest priority. So the new director of the EPA, this is his highest priority. And I think that again, it's not necessarily concrete, tangible things that anyone can take home with them, other than, Vice President Vance did talk about specific things that they're going to hold Norfolk Southern to, things that they had promised they would do that they hadn't done yet, in speaking about the fire safety training that they were offering here, and as well as money directly coming to the community. So I think in the end, that's really it, is just putting this as a high priority when the previous administration simply ignored this community.
And Ben, big picture here, the fact that Vice President Vance showed up, that in and of itself was a victory for that community.
Yeah, and he's been showing up from the beginning. We played some of the video from earlier. He was one of the first people here testing the water, stirring that rainbow sludge that we saw. We were here, our network was here, but JD was here as a senator from the very beginning. And to the people here, it means a lot to them that he hasn't forgotten. He's coming here, and to set it, this second week in office, to set this as one of their top priorities, it means a lot to this community.
Absolutely. Ben Burkham reporting for us on the ground there in East Palestine, where Vice President J.D. Vance just wrapped up remarks. He also brought the EPA, the new EPA administrator, with him, as well as the new senator there in Ohio, Bernie Moreno. So we'll, of course, continue to cover this for you throughout the day. But now let's get you back to your regularly scheduled programming.
And Jack, where's Jack? Where's Jack? Where is he? Jack, I want to see you. Great job, Jack. Thank you. What a job you do. We have an incredible thing. We're always talking about the fake news and the bad, but we have guys, and these are the guys who be getting Pulitzers.
All right, Jack Posobiec, we're back. Human Events Daily, Washington, D.C., and folks, we've all seen the headlines. Cyber attacks on our power grids, the drones in the sky, violent attacks on everyday Americans. The ugly truth is that no leader, no system can protect you from everything. And the last thing I want to be is standing in line depending on help that may never come. When crisis hits, food is always the first casualty. Everyone needs it, and our panic buying makes things worse. That's why I've made sure that my family, the Poso family, is prepared with My Patriot Supply. Their 4-week emergency food kit gives you the nutrition that you will need to stay strong in a crisis. 2,000 calories a day and 100% of your daily value of 12 essential vitamins and minerals, this kit keeps you going when every meal matters. Right now, they're offering $50 off their 4-week food kit. Go to mypatriotsupply.com right now to grab yours. Don't put this off. Now is the time to prepare. That's mypatriotsupply.com to get your 4-week food kit today. All right, now we're on with Alan Bakari. We're talking about President Trump is making these new moves, and Brandon Carr is making these huge new moves over at the FCC. They're targeting not just Facebook, not just Meta, but also something in their crosshairs, and should be more in their crosshairs, is Facebook, with a huge new report from the FFO. Alan, so talk to us about what exactly you found when you were digging into Microsoft and their background and their dealings in this censorship.
It goes very, very deep. Microsoft mentioned earlier their partnership with NewsGuard, a professional censorship company. They've also made a point of hiring almost every bad actor from the government side of the censorship industrial complex. You might remember something called Hamilton 68. Hamilton 68 was this dashboard developed by government-funded nonprofits that in 2017 or 2018, I believe, sold itself to tech companies as something that could track down Russian agents and the spreaders of Russian influence on social media. And they developed huge lists of Twitter users and other social media users that they claimed were Russian agents. Turns out they were all American users, American conservatives, American Trump supporters that were being falsely labeled Russian agents. This is one of the things that came out during the Twitter files. The guy who built that dashboard, a former FBI counterintelligence official called Clint Watts, was later hired by Microsoft. That's just one example. Another Microsoft board member, Reid Hoffman, who, notorious Trump hater, who funded a very similar thing in the Alabama runoff election in 2017, where, these fake accounts were created to create the impression of a Russian intelligence operation that could then be used to justify the social media censorship of Americans. He's a board member at Microsoft. They also funded the Center for an Informed Public at the University of Washington, one of the 4 members of the Election Integrity Partnership, that notorious collection of organizations which was hatched in DHS, hatched by the government, and played a massive role in censoring the 2020 election. Millions of posts were censored as a result of that group's efforts. They were funded by Microsoft. And, it would be one thing. It would be one thing if Microsoft was scaling back on all of this, but they're not. They're still partnered with NewsGuard, and they've shown no indication that they're scaling back on any of this. And yet they still seem to be in favor in Washington. They still seem to be getting favors. And I hope that many of the people who are now being appointed, who have a great history of monitoring big tech censorship and being real warriors in the fight against big tech censorship, will read this report and take a look at some of these things. Because in some cases it's actually getting worse. Just one example, Activision Blizzard, which is a massive video games company owned by Microsoft, sent out a memo in their internal Discord server saying they're not going to roll back DEI initiatives. In fact, they're going to double down on them. Another example, OpenAI just launched a tool called Operator, which is an AI agent that can sort of run your computer and do online searches for you. Only 4 news sources are used by Operator currently: The Atlantic, Axios, AP, and Reuters. Not a single conservative news source as part of that. And we've seen huge political bias from OpenAI in the past as well. So, the question I'd ask of Microsoft is, are they going to keep all these censorship programs that censored Americans and censored Trump supporters nonstop? Are they going to keep their relationship with NewsGuard? That's the biggest thing in my book. While still expecting to be in favor in Washington. That's like a very strange set of events.
Now, where can people go to get a direct copy of this report so they can read it for themselves and get all of these details?
Of course. So it's at the foundationforfreedomonline.com. And the piece is called How Microsoft Helped Build the Censorship Industry. Very, very important piece. So go check it out if you can.
No, I think you absolutely should. And of course, you and Mike Benz are doing really the yeoman's work over there. Of course, Benz really coming down hard on USAID. By the way, there's a protest going on in front of USAID that's happening right now. Apparently, Ilhan Omar is out there. Jamie Raskin. They're saying no to Doge. And it's just one of the most wonderful things I've ever seen. All of the worst people are completely activated. But Al, this is something that I think we all should focus on, because look, I think that Elon buying X has led to a sort of general de-emphasis on the censorship question. So a de-emphasis on wanting to fight back against censorship, and certainly a de-emphasis on having the government come in and actually put some controls on social media, like for example, an internet bill of rights for the user, or questions about who controls your data when it comes to your online activity, who controls that online footprint. And that's something that, by the way, the FCC should be looking into. So let me ask you this. Do you think that that's something that these latest moves, from hiring the professor to be general counsel, to have Brendan Carr over there as well, who's been a huge advocate for this, do you think that there's action that the FCC can and should still take on the censorship front?
I think there certainly is, and not just the FCC, but also the FTC when it comes to collusive behaviors like advertising agencies getting together and boycotting social media platforms because they're opposed to what American social media users are saying, when they act in concert as an industry. That is very anti-competitive behavior, which is right in the FTC's jurisdiction. I think the FCC can also do a lot here, because there have been regulations in the past that made companies, for example, under the Obama administration, actually, there was net neutrality, which made internet service providers common carriers, and that subjects them to all sorts of requirements about what they can and cannot carry. So I think there's a lot of area where the FCC can provide scrutiny, and I think the thing about, you mentioned Elon Musk taking over X and how that sort of ushered in a new era of free speech on social media. It would be one thing if, coming back to Microsoft, it'd be one thing if they scaled back their censorship programs. So Mark Zuckerberg, do I necessarily believe he's completely sincere in, the changes in his political opinions over the past 6 months or so? Not necessarily. I think he's a very pragmatic guy, but Facebook has made some real changes. It's, scaled back some of its content moderation policies. Zuckerberg's even gone on Joe Rogan and talked about in pretty a fair amount of detail about how the government pressured Facebook to censor and how Biden officials would call up Facebook officials and yell at them and get them to censor content. So they've actually taken concrete steps to, stake out a position against censorship. Microsoft has done none of that, and yet they're still in the ascendancy in Washington, which is interesting to see.
No, I think that's right. And look, there's huge questions when it comes to what should be done for the user online. By the way, that Internet Bill of Rights, when we talk about the data of every individual that currently is just being sold on the market, why not allow people to at least get a piece of that? So, hey, if you want your data sold, hey, this is how much I'm willing to pay for it, or willing to sell it for, and you've got to pay for it, or something like that. I mean, there's this whole question of our relationship with big media, with big tech, with all of these platforms. They're getting, of course, fabulously wealthy. By the same token, they're using these as large language models to train their various AI. We already know that's how Grok works. So it just kind of makes sense. But I do think that what President Trump has given us is ability to just press reset on all of these various questions and allow people to step back and say, you know what? This is what we want our government doing. These are things that actually directly affect us and directly affect our lives. And no, we're not so focused on these forever wars and things that are going on all over the world. No, let's actually do something that affects us, that affects our families, affects our children.
Well, what worries me about the tech companies, and I know some of them have, gotten better in the past few years, largely thanks to the trend that Musk started. But Americans still have no recourse under the law if their account gets taken away. Tech companies can still destroy someone's livelihood, destroy their public platform, and you have no recourse. No other business could do that. Like if you get kicked out of a physical property on spurious reasons, say if you own a business and your landlord kicks you out for spurious reasons, you can take them to court and say, hey, they kicked me out for dodgy reasons. You can't do if you're on a social media platform and your entire business is based there. You don't have similar protections under the law. So, there's no protections under the law for American social media users, or any social media users really, against, arbitrary deplatforming on the one hand, or as you said, data collection. They have no protections over how their data is used either. And I think that is still concerning. And that is something that Adam Kandeyev, who you mentioned, worked on in the first Trump administration. So I'm looking forward to him working on similar things now at the FCC. And I think Brendan Carr, considers this to be his top priority as well. So, it's looking good for the future, I think, when it comes to internet freedom.
Everything is looking up. The golden age has done. Alan Bakari, where can people follow you, brother?
You can follow me on Twitter at Alan Bakari, and you can find all our deep dive reports on censorship at Microsoft and at other places. And at USAID, in fact, at the foundationforfreedomonline.com.
Make sure you go there, you're reading everything, following everything, study up, because we've got a lot of fights ahead, and we've got more human events ahead right after the break.
An important message for Americans ages 50 to 85.
That's how it ended. I remember that.
You talked her into it.
I did. Now we all have life insurance. Well, I had no choice. She really didn't, because I told her that if she didn't get it, we were going to put you in charge of her funeral. And I know how you hate to spend money.
I bought life insurance, didn't I?
It costs pennies a day.
And that's just one reason I like Colonial Penn.
What's another?
Unlike my sisters, they don't ask about my health.
That's right. Colonial Penn doesn't ask a single medical question. And there's no physical exam. If you're over 50, you can't be turned down for guaranteed acceptance whole life insurance, no matter what your health. You can apply in minutes just by filling out a simple form. Options start at $9.95 a month, 35 cents a day. And the good news is, your rate will never change. A built-in rate lock guarantees it.
But finally, something we can all agree on.
I have to hand it to Colonial Penn.
Yeah, it works for all of us. Those with health issues and those who watch their money.
Colonial Penn makes getting life insurance easy, even if you have pre-existing conditions or a fixed income. Call for more information and the simple form you need to apply today. There's no obligation, and you'll receive a free beneficiary planner. Record your important information and final wishes in this handy guide. It puts everything your family will need in one place.
Call 1-800-644-4488 for your free information and your free beneficiary planner. That's 1-800-644-4488. There's no risk or obligation. That number again is 1-800-644-4488. 1-800-644-4488. So call now.
My back got injured very bad. I was off work for about a year. I heard about Relief Factor from my wife. I took it every day, 3 times a day for 3 weeks. I'd look at her and I said, the pain is gone. And she said, I'm glad it helped. I said, no, you don't understand. It's gone.
Relief Factor is a daily supplement that doesn't just mask pain, it helps eliminate it. Call or go online now for our 3-week quick start, just $19.95.
Why is Navage trusted by millions?
Before Navage, I was not living my best life because I could not breathe. Constant nasal congestion, constant blowing of the nose. The huge difference is the fact that Navage pulls it out. It's very gentle in the sense of when that suction happens, it's literally grabbing that water and that mucus and it's bringing it out into this tank. It's worth every penny that you pay for it. This product changed my life.
Available at major retailers or online at Navage.com.
Jack is a great guy. He's written a fantastic book. Everybody's talking about it. Go get it. And he's been my friend right from the beginning of this whole beautiful event. And we're going to turn it around and make our country great again. Amen.
All right, Jack Posobiec, we are back. Human Events Daily, live, Washington, D.C. Folks, what we're seeing right now is nothing short of a new start for your government. It's like 1776 2.0, a second American Revolution, and we are, through the grace of God, able to view this through our own eyes, happening right now in real time, whether it's in our cities, whether it's in our homes, our workplaces, including the federal workplaces. And we're going to talk about that in just a quick second, because federal workers really don't seem to like the fact that they are going to be asked to work on behalf of the American people, possibly for the very first time in their lives. All right, I want to take a quick second here. We're going to bring radio in because this needs to be heard.
When I'm working long hours, I'm always listening to Human Events with Jack Posobiec.
All right, Jack Posobiec, we are back up. By the way, to the Salem audience, I want to say welcome to Human Events Daily. It's an absolute honor to be here. By the way, I used to be a huge Bill Bennett listener back in the day. Yeah, that's right. Back on 990 AM in the Philadelphia market. That's where I'm from. And just an incredible honor, again, to be on the network. But at the same time, there's a lot of work to do, because if you go and look over at, there's this page on Reddit called Reddit Fed News, so r/Fed News. And these workers over there, they're incensed. They are posting on Reddit, typically during work hours, I might add, and talking about how they want to subvert President Trump and particularly subvert Elon Musk and go after him. In fact, so much so that some of these types, even going on Blue Sky, are actually targeting through the actual names, addresses, and photos of individuals who are working for Doge. They are going after them. They're going after their families. They are going after their homes. And they are trying to actually intimidate them to the point where they quit, to the point where they're harassed, to the point where they feel as though something terrible could happen to them. But something that we also need to point out, there's this one post, and by the way, when, you know, full disclosure, caveat, all that stuff, we don't know for sure exactly who is posting these things, but in many accounts, you can see that these guys have been up there for a long time. So if they've been up there for a long time posting about working in the government, then it stands to reason that these aren't some kind of trolls. This isn't just a, some type of performance piece, that it's actually real, that it's actually going on. And the FBI, by the way, if you are at the FBI right now and you haven't filled out your questionnaire yet regarding your involvement in the J6 prosecutions, you need to be going after the people that are targeting and harassing Doge. You need to be going after them. How about you actually show that you want to do something for the American people, something that you should be doing, something you should have been doing all along, going after actual criminals. I don't recall anyone from J6 doing things like that, but now we're seeing, look at this, and it's going up. Federal workers actively stating that they're declaring war on the Trump admin from within the government. And this is the post. I'm actually going to read this. So this isn't my words. This is the words of this post. To my fellow feds, especially veterans, we're at war. We watched this goon try to overthrow the government on live TV 4 years ago. Now we're witnessing him try to overthrow it from within. We are the last line of defense against fascism. If we leave, we'll be replaced by loyalists. Read Project 2025, and for the love of God, please believe what is written, because that is what is happening. All the EOs are directly from that document. Oh my gosh, listen to this. We are being led by the same types of people our grandparents fought against in World War II. Are you seeing this? Like, are seeing this, folks? This is the type of person, and I've been there. I was an intelligence officer inside the United States government. I was in the U.S. Navy. I worked in Navy intelligence. I'm telling you, these are exactly the types of people that you would find, especially in Washington, D.C. Listen to this. I don't know what the future... It's so dramatic. This is the theater kids, right? I don't know what the future holds, but I refuse to bow down to this fascist, authoritarian elite class. Knowing is coming to save us, but we have to hold the line. Let me tell you something right now. The theater kids are being thrown out of government at long last. The theater kids are done. Exit stage right. Exit stage right to every last one of you. Why don't you put your names on there? Why don't you actually have the gall to go ahead and put your name to it? Because you know something? IP addresses are trackable, especially if you're posting this on the same computer that you use for your remote work. You guys really didn't think this one through, did you? No, you didn't. But at the same time, you never do. You never do, and that has always been and will always be your fatal flaw. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Human Events Daily. Again, huge welcome to the Salem audience. It's an honor to be here, and I'm glad and truly thrilled to be with you, and hope that we'll be able to continue this for a long, long time. Ladies and gentlemen, as always, you have my permission to lay ashore.
If anyone has told you that gaining weight, feeling tired, and struggling with nagging digestive and joint issues is just a part of getting older, they are wrong. My name is Dr. Stephen Gundry, and after years of struggling with these same issues, I found a new way to support my health at home by making one simple change to my diet. It's called BioComplete 3. BioComplete 3 works by restoring your gut health from the inside out. This is a major part of how I lost 70 pounds and have kept the weight off for 25 years. It's not just me. This is working for everybody. Joe helped his gut health, and you can see the changes, not just how he looks on the outside, but how much better he felt on the inside.
I was 270. I'm now 140. It just feels amazing. Thank you, Dr. Gundry.
I helped all these people achieve incredible changes to their weight, their digestion, even their skin. And for a limited time, you can try BioComplete 3 risk-free for 90 days. Go to guthealthsecret.com.
If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. If you're happy and you know it, ride your bike.
If you're happy and you know it, then your face will surely show it.
If you're happy and you know it, smile big and bright.
Thousands of kids just like me are happy every day.
And it's all because of generous people like you who support Shriners Hospitals for Children every month.
All you have to do is call the number on your screen or go online to loveshriners.org right now with your monthly gift.
Because of people like you, Shriners Hospitals for Children is able to make an everyday miracle happen for kids like me.
If you're happy and you know it,